My husband cheated on me with someone on Reddit. I've been with my husband for 6 years now, and we have 2 beautiful children together. He said he replied to a Reddit post to give advice to someone, but that person then started to message him privately on here. They have been talking on and off, so he says, for a year. He went to meet this person for the first time in a hotel. They first had dinner, and then my husband said he realized what he was doing was wrong, and it didn't go any further. I found the hotel card in his wallet. He said he has no feelings for her, and that she was just like a friend. I believed him because the husband I know is honest, respectful, kind, and understanding. I asked him why he agreed to meet with this person, and also why he decided to do it at a hotel. He stated because the other person was very adamant and would not leave him alone. Also because apparently, according to her Reddit post, she was thinking of hurting herself. He's never done anything wrong to me. This is the first time. Our marriage was great, but then we had kids and everything was about them. We hardly got the chance to spend time with each other. I know I can trust him again, and maybe this will bring us closer, but I don't know if I'm truly going to be happy because it hurts a lot. This is super suspicious because I honestly don't believe the husband in this story in the slightest. There's a lot of red flags here, but the first most obvious one is that this guy met up with someone on Reddit at a hotel. Hotels are meant for sleeping and possible other activities. I don't believe him for a second when he says nothing else happened. She states that she loves her husband and that he's not going to be disrespectful or dishonest or anything like that, but that's exactly what he just did. This is super dishonest and this is not a good look. And if I were her, I would definitely be reevaluating my marriage with this person. Am I the jerk for not allowing my boyfriend's sister to bring their service dog to our birthday party? I am sure I will get some hate for this, but hear me out. My boyfriend's sister has a quote service dog she takes everywhere with her. I put it in quotes because she always dances around with her service dog, but never explains what it does. And my boyfriend won't answer what its purpose is either. I have 2 boys, 5 and 7, who love dogs. Every time she is around with her dog, she scolds them for wanting to play with and or pet the dog. I teach them not to mess with other dogs in public, but in a home setting, it gets a little bit into the gray area. The dog is in the house. He is just hanging around. It's not like he's pulling her wheelchair around. I told her not to scold my children, and she told me the dog is a breed that won't tolerate my kids climbing on it. So I guess apparently this service dog is dangerous and that they shouldn't be messing with him. So my boyfriend's birthday is coming up and I am hosting a party at my house for him. I told him that his sister could not bring her dog to my house if she wanted to come. He literally told me to cancel the party and that we will have to get together somewhere else so her dog could come with her. I don't want the stress of her getting upset with my kids for being kids. I don't want to have to worry that the dog may bite them, and I just don't really want a dog in my house. I do not believe the dog is a legitimate service dog, as I don't know of any disability that she has. Wow, the lady in this story is like a big Karen. I mean, how dare you assume that someone is faking an illness or a disability of some kind just to have a service dog with them? Did you know that some disabilities are invisible? That some disabilities that require a service dog aren't completely obvious to the surrounding public? That dog could be preventing them from having a seizure on the ground. That dog could warn them of when their blood sugar is too high or too low. When that dog is around in its vest, it is literally working. It is doing its job, and no, it shouldn't have kids climbing all over it. It is absolutely disgusting and discriminatory that this woman would question what this service dog is or isn't. It does not take much to be the parent in this situation and respect the wishes of those around them. And if a lady says, hey, don't touch my service dog, then you get your kids off of the service dog. And no, the dog probably isn't dangerous. She is absolutely a bad person for acting this way, and she should 100% be ashamed of herself. I accidentally traumatized my son with science. So my son loves for me to read to him. He's 4 years old, and we read 3 or so books every night before bed. I love that he reads and try to steer him towards educational books, or at least stories with a meaning. So when some guy came around selling books door to door, I had to check them out. There was a whole set for kids around his age that are just full of facts about different topics, from science to history, anatomy to space. These books cover a ton of subjects. So tonight, we were reading one and it asked, do stars live forever? Obviously the answer was no, and it said that eventually our sun would shrink down and become a white dwarf, then go out forever. I, being the scientifically literate man that I am, pointed out to him that it's more likely that our sun will grow into a red giant and consume the earth. So my son asked, does that mean it'll catch the earth on fire? Seeing that I messed up, I tried to explain it away that it would be long after we were gone, and that humans will have moved into space to live elsewhere. Unfortunately, my son doesn't have a great understanding of things like billions of years or even 5 minutes for that matter. Also, Also, my son tends to get fixated on things and ignore petty things like details. So for the next half hour, he kept peppering me with questions like, if we move to space, can I take all my toys with us? And after the Earth stops burning, can we come back? And if we come back, can everyone work together to clean up? I don't like lying to him, but I'm also not looking forward to telling him that, hey, I was wrong, it's not going to turn into a red giant, but I think it's a little too late. I feel like I unintentionally traumatized my 4-year-old and plunged him into an existential crisis. I might have to do some fixing tomorrow if he's still stuck on this. Sometimes science is scary. This man made the mistake of explaining something to a 4-year-old who now knows how to ask why. I have friends who have kids this age, and they told me the second they started asking the question why was the second that it all was just over. Nothing was out of bounds, and the kid was going to ask questions about everything. And this is a prime example of that. So yeah, teach your kids stuff, but just be careful what you teach them. I cheated on my wife with a fictional character. Let me explain. A couple days ago, my wife had a dream where I cheated on her and later left to live with the other woman in her dream. She told me about her dream in the morning, clearly distressed. Trying to diffuse the situation, I decided to create a funny origin story of the girl I was seeing in her dream. I named her Broomhilda, as this name doesn't exist where I live or anywhere that I know, and I thought it would add some volume and a certain mystery to her character. I was honestly just trying to poke fun. The next day, I posted a funny comment on a Facebook page and received a ha-ha reaction from a user named Broomhilda. I thought it was hilarious, and I showed it to my wife. She did not think it was hilarious. As a result, I ended up having to sleep on the sofa the next night. So I learned a lesson the hard way. Don't try to turn lemons into lemonade, or Murphy's Law will kick in, and it's going to take you out. It sounds like the woman in this story is just a little stressed out because she's worried that her husband's going to cheat on her based off of a dream, but that's not at all how this works. I think it's a clear rule of thumb that if it happens in a dream, it didn't happen for real, and you shouldn't hold it over your partner just based off some nightmare that you had last night. If I was the guy in this situation, I 100% would have made this joke as well. But in all honesty, this is just a fun little story that details how silly some relationships can truly be. Should I tell my boyfriend I cheated this weekend? I cheated on my long-distance boyfriend this weekend. We've been dating for a year and a half, but I haven't seen him since June as we both had to move back to our home countries when school ended. This weekend, I went on a trip with my best friend, and one night, I had a few too many and went home with a guy I met at the bar. It was an impulsive decision, and I regretted it immediately. I have issues with impulsivity and emotional regulation, and after he was being very clingy and controlling this weekend, demanding that I tell him everything I'm doing, showing him what I'm wearing, who I'm with, etc., I kind of got in a headspace where I didn't care about anything but what would make me feel good in the moment. No consequences or anything considered. My mental health issues are obviously not an excuse. I'm not trying to justify what I did because there's no justification. The guy I met meant nothing to me. I wasn't really attracted to him. I had no interest in ever seeing him again. I didn't even learn his name. All I wanted was to feel wanted, to see that someone who didn't know me was attracted to me. So I spent the night with him and left right after. My question is, should I tell my boyfriend this? I know I would want to know, but at the same time, I'm afraid telling him causes him more pain. This could just be more unnecessary pain for him to endure, as the chances of him ever finding out are minimal. But then I think, what if I'm convincing myself to not tell him for my own selfish reasons? Like I don't want to own up to what I did. Obviously, he deserves to have all the information so that he can decide if he wants this relationship and to still be with me, but he doesn't deserve to suffer from my horrible actions. I'm very torn on what to do. If I could take it back, I would, but I can't, and now I have to figure out what the best thing to do is. I can't just break up with him for no reason. He will blame himself, and that isn't fair. We've had a lot of issues these last few months, and I've felt very alone and without any emotional support. But if I were to break up now, he would most likely solely blame himself, when a part of the reason I would be doing it is because of my own guilt and horrible actions. But if I don't say anything and we don't break up, I would be lying to him, which also would not be fair. Obviously, there's no good way to keep this relationship going. I either would hurt him with the truth or lie to him. But which is best? There's a lot of trust that goes into a long-distance relationship. Both parties are depending on the other person to be honest and faithful, and the lady in this story was definitely not faithful. It's as if she took her entire relationship and just put it on the shelf and said, I'll look at you later. Not telling her boyfriend about this now is only going to ruin future plans for them. It's better to get it out of the way now and tell him exactly what happened instead of 5 years down the road when you're married with a kid. The lady in the story is completely in the wrong, and the boyfriend has every right to know. Anything but telling him the truth is selfish. I don't understand why she's so torn. I mean, she lives a country away from this guy, and she's cheating on him, and she's having trouble figuring out if she should
should tell her boyfriend? In my opinion, this relationship is not going to last, because clearly the woman in this situation is not faithful, and if I were the guy, I would immediately kick her to the curb after this.
My girlfriend left me the same day I bought an engagement ring. I've always been afraid of commitment, mainly because of my parents' terrible divorce and some other bad experiences. My girlfriend gave me an ultimatum 18 months ago that she wanted to take our relationship to the next level and get engaged. I wasn't feeling ready, so I postponed it as far as I could. 3 months ago, she packed up and moved to a different state. I sunk into more despair until one day I finally decided to get over my fears and purchase a large diamond ring. I called her up asking if I could visit while planning the surprise proposal. She said she'd think about it and eventually said she'd prefer if I didn't visit. Heartbroken, I decided to wait a couple of weeks. I went ahead and bought a ticket. I received the ring and I was super excited to have conquered my fear. That day, I received a letter saying she didn't want to share a future together with me. I can't help but feel all the fear was protecting me and that I've exposed a fatal vulnerability that I've never healed from. Not sure if I need to let this die or do I tell her about the ring? Some of my friends say go visit anyways. Others say give her some space and respect her decision. What do I do? The guy in this story clearly was dragging his feet way too long. The girlfriend gave him a very specific ultimatum. Let's have a life together. You got 18 months to figure it out. Go. And he dragged his feet the entire time because he's afraid of commitment. I honestly don't blame the girlfriend for moving out and deciding that she does not want to be with him. He didn't take their relationship seriously. He didn't have any expectations or plans involved with their future. It's honestly too little too late. I mean, why didn't he listen to her when she was his partner? He only listened to her after she left. And no, he should absolutely not try and throw this proposal at her after she's left him. She would probably think that it's just a ploy to remain engaged indefinitely and never get married. After all, that's what his behavior has shown previously. It's great that he's overcome his fear and that he feels like he's moved past this paralyzing fear preventing him from getting married, but it's at the cost of losing the person that he loves. In all honesty, he just needs to stop, take a second, and work on himself and respect her wishes. I mean, what was he expecting? To run up and say, hey, I got your breakup letter and I just wanted to tell you that after 18 months, I'm finally ready to marry you. Let's just get rid of all your feelings and all the things you just said. Here's a ring, let's get married. That would be weird. It literally would not fix anything. It's his own fault for waiting too long, and I don't blame the woman for walking out on him. Am I the jerk for stealing from my job? This actually happened yesterday. I was a server at a popular corporate restaurant that's famous for pancakes. We are known for other things, but pancakes are really what we're known for. Yesterday afternoon, one of our newer servers accidentally rang in a kid's junior cheeseburger while trying to ring in a different kid's meal. As the food was coming up, she caught her mistake and told the cooks, went back to fix her ticket, and tried to make things right. They pushed the kid's meal off to the side and everyone continued on about their day. About an hour later, I still see the kid's meal sitting in what we called the window. I asked my fellow servers and the cooks if it was dead, meaning that it was cold, thrown away, or that we can't serve it. They told me yes, so instead of throwing it away, I put it in a to-go box and put it in the fridge that we have in the server station. My plan was to bring it home to my daughter. We've been struggling lately, and this would be likely the only thing I could feed her for the day. I wrap up for the day, grab my kiddo's burger, and catch the bus home. I greet my daughter, say bye to my sitter, and warm up the junior cheeseburger. I bring it to my daughter, and she's ecstatic, obviously. I leave her to the burger and Barbies and go to the living room to relax when my phone rings. It's my general manager. To make a long story short, she said that she saw on camera where I stole a meal and hid it in the fridge. I explained to her that not only was the food dead, but my daughter and I have been struggling extremely badly lately. She told me that's unfortunate, but nevertheless, it's corporate policy that what I did qualifies as stealing and is automatic termination. I tried to resonate with her, but to no avail, obviously. I get that what I did was wrong, but I really wish they didn't fire me for it. It just puts me in a worse predicament. I thought about fighting it, but to who? I did take food that wasn't mine, but it was going in the trash anyway. I don't get it, but clearly I messed up. Yeah, this is a tricky one because the food was going to be thrown away anyways. I've worked in restaurants before as a busboy as well as a server, and there is so much food that goes to waste in restaurants it's not even funny. I'm talking about multiple trash bags full of good food that absolutely has no reason being thrown away. The kind of food that could easily be donated to homeless people or some kind of shelter. It's really wasteful. So I understand where this person's coming from, where they hid some food in the freezer and decided to take it home with them. If I'm being completely honest, I've done that before at my restaurant job and nobody batted an eye. It makes me a little suspicious that the manager supposedly saw this on a camera, because why on earth would the manager know to look for that? It sounds like to me that somebody stabbed this person in the back and told the manager
manager that they took some food? Because what manager just sits on the cameras and watches what their employees are doing instead of being out there and actually helping and leading as a manager? I mean, I'm sure there probably are managers like that who are absolute deadbeats and don't do anything for their company, but it just seems a little suspicious. I'm personally on the side of the person who took the hamburger that was already going into the trash. It was being thrown out, nobody was going to eat it, and it was going into the garbage, so I don't see any conflict with this person taking it home. And it's really terrible that they got fired for taking garbage home, but that's what happens when you work for heartless people, I guess. I climbed a mountain with a friend I made on the internet, and things went terribly wrong. So at the time, I had been friends with this person for about 4 years on the internet. He was coming down from a different province, and we made plans to hang out while he was in town. I live in a fairly small town that doesn't have a lot to do most of the time, and the middle of summer was no exception. So I decided to take him to the mountain I climbed because the view is beautiful, and I just enjoy climbing personally. Getting to the mountain was good. We hiked through the woods for a bit before climbing up. We took the safer path to climb, but it's still really steep. And there's a part where you have to use a rope just to get up the mountain. Once you're on top of the mountain though, it's all easy trails. So we eventually make it up to the top, and we're up there for a while, taking in the view and talking about what to do afterwards. We decided to hit up Tim Hortons for coffee and go to the lake after we climbed down. Here's where the problems start. We get to the part of the mountain where we climbed down, and I had just taken my first few steps to grab a tree for a handhold, and my foot slips. I go bouncing, tumbling, and rolling. Probably quite the sight for my friend down this mountain. I went a good 80 feet rolling and bouncing along the rocks to the base of the mountain. I laid still for a moment, making sure I was still alive before standing up. My friend's yelling to see if I'm okay, as I look myself over and ask him to bring me my shoe that came off when I fell. Needless to say, I went to the hospital to get checked out. I had bruised ribs, inflamed some cartilage, had some nerve damage and a small patch on my leg, and a lot of bumps and bruises. I still have the picture of all my injuries, and my friend is slightly traumatized. At least our first person hangout is unforgettable for the most part. I'm not gonna lie, when I read the title of this story, I thought it was going in a completely different direction. I think falling down a mountain is a lot better of a situation than what could have happened when you're meeting someone on the internet for the first time. So in all honesty, as horrible as it sounds, I'm kind of glad that the surprise for this story was just that the original poster fell down a mountain. Because if what I thought was gonna happen actually did happen, I would be horribly upset. But I've actually done something like this similar. I was in Boy Scouts as a kid, and as we were climbing up this steep incline, one of the other Boy Scouts in front of me let loose a rock, and this watermelon-sized boulder smashed into the side of my hip. It hurt like crazy at the time, but we just kept going. I never did tell my parents about it. Overall, this could have been a lot worse, so I think this person got off lucky just having some bruised ribs and some bumps and bruises overall. I turned down my friend of almost 4 years, and he snapped on me. I've been close with him for 4 years, and I trusted him, so I honestly don't know what to say right now. He invited me to his aunt's wedding as a +1. I agreed because I knew his family. It was more people there than I expected or even knew, and I was getting some stares, but my friend kept me comfortable, and the guests that I talked to were really nice. It was an open bar, and my friend had a few drinks. I did too, but not too much since I wanted to be aware of my surroundings. I danced with him, took a lot of pictures, and he introduced me to some people. I could hear a few people tell him I was pretty, like we were dating, and it threw me off. I decided to leave early because I felt weird, but he stopped me and sort of confessed his feelings for me. He told me that he loved me and that he wanted to be with me. He tried to give me a hug, and I normally would, but this time I felt super uncomfortable. I rejected him, and he just got quiet. I offered to drive him home, and that's when he snapped on me. He said that there's only one reason that anyone would want to be with me. He then went on this terrible tirade, talking about all this stuff that I've told him in private, using it against me. I froze because part of me didn't register it, and I didn't want to believe that this is what he was actually doing. He was using my insecurities against me, that I had confided in him. When he saw I was upset, he told me to go. The next day he texted me like everything was normal. When I told him what he said, he tried to play it off like he was just drunk and saying stuff. Then he said I was overthinking about it. Then he said he was thinking about someone else and apologized. I'm confused, and I want to give him the benefit of the doubt since he isn't like that, but it hurts. I love him, but it's messed up. Should I forgive him? I just don't know how I feel. The guy in this story is a scumbag. He used private information information about this lady just to use it against her after she rejected him. And good on her for rejecting him. Clearly, there's some serious red flags that she picked up on without him even having to mention it. He sounds like the type of guy where when he doesn't get his way, he's gonna start throwing a temper tantrum. This type of person doesn't just burn a bridge down between people. He's the person throwing gasoline on the bridge and lighting it himself. And it's really gross that he tried to pretend like none of this was a big deal the next day. He said some hurtful things, and this is just absolutely unacceptable. If I was her, I would cut communications off with this guy almost immediately. Clearly, he's super toxic, and she does not need this in her life. I'm divorcing my wife because she wants to terminate our first child. My wife and I have been married for 4 years, and about 6 months ago, we started trying to have a baby. We both wanted a baby and felt like we were ready for a child. About 2 months ago, my wife found out she was pregnant. At first, we were both extremely happy when we found out, or so I thought. But after we visited our doctor to confirm the pregnancy, my wife suddenly switched up. She started telling me that she had doubts about having this baby and having children in general. She started saying that she didn't want to alter her body in a way that would leave permanent marks and go through the difficulty of pregnancy. She also started saying that she isn't sure that she wants someone who is going to hold her back for 18 years of her life. At first, I started by reassuring her about her doubts. I told her that I would help her in every step of the way of her pregnancy, and that I will make sure she is always taken care of, and that I will always be by her side the whole time, and that she isn't going to go through this alone. I also told her that a child is not only a beautiful sign of our love for each other, but that we will have amazing experiences with this child. I also tried to reassure her that she won't be alone in raising our child, and that I'll be there for them for every single step, and that I will support my family for the rest of my life. She still didn't feel like she wanted to have the baby. To try and resolve these issues, I even set up a meeting for couples counseling to talk about this problem. After I asked her numerous times to come to couple counseling together and her refusing, she finally came. During the 2 sessions, we tried to clear up the doubts she was having, and I tried to reassure her of my support. I also made it clear that if we terminated the pregnancy, that I would not be able to stay in this marriage. Her feelings still didn't change, and she still felt like she didn't want to have the baby. For the past couple of weeks, we've been arguing about this. I keep trying to reassure her, but her feelings still didn't change. She told me that it is her decision whether she wants to go through the pregnancy or not. That is 100% true. It is her decision, her body, her choice. But that does not mean I have to accept her decision within the confinement of our marriage. I respect whatever decisions she decides to make, but her decision does have consequences for our marriage. I was confused because we both agreed that we felt ready and wanted kids. She said that she didn't think it through all the way. I know she is allowed to change her mind and change her decision on the pregnancy, but I don't think I can accept it and continue my marriage. Yesterday, she gave me the heartbreaking news that she is going to terminate her pregnancy. I made the final attempt to change her mind, but she was adamant about her decision. I told her that I will support her through this process, but I will be filing for divorce afterwards. She started crying and telling me that our marriage doesn't have to end. I know that I'll never be able to love her like I used to if she does this, and that I'll always resent her for it, so getting the divorce is our only best option. I am normally a very rational and strong person in terms of character, but I have never experienced emotions like these. I feel like I'm totally numb inside, and my world is completely shifted. How can I deal with my grief in this situation? This is a really sad story. This man is not only losing his wife, but he's losing his future child. I can understand why he feels upset. Having a kid is one of those things that you gotta absolutely make sure you're ready for. If you're not ready to have kids, you should not try to have kids, and this is a perfect case of that. It's a little too late not to want the child after you're already pregnant. It sounds like the lady in this story clearly didn't think this through, and it's devastating to see that the result of this is going to be her losing not only her husband, but also her unborn child. I really feel for this family, and I hope they find the solutions that they're looking for. My boyfriend wants us to sell our house and live in a van. Yep. My boyfriend wants us to sell our house, buy a van, live in the van, and travel around the country. We've been together for 4 years. Before we met, he was a car salesman at a Ford dealership. He was like a stupid good salesman. He sold the most cars out of anyone else in his dealership the first year when he was just 22. By the time he was 25, he was the best in the region. Literally sold cars nonstop. But he got bored of it, so he bought a secondhand thrift store when he was 25. I met him 3 years later when he was 28 and I was 25 because I went to his thrift store store to look for some plates for my apartment, and I literally fell in love within 20 minutes. I think I ended up spending like 3 hours in his store just talking to him. We went on a date a week later. He stayed the night at my apartment, and he pretty much never left. His lease was up 2 months after we met, and then he just moved in with me. When my lease was up 5 months later, we bought a house together. So basically, we're both impulsive and stupid, but living with him these past 3.5 years have been the best years of my life. We cannot get enough of each other. About a year and a half ago, I left my teaching job to work in his shop and travel with him. We spent about half our time driving around the country, picking up new items for the store. It's been weirdly successful as far as a thrift store goes. I think this is because we drive literally anywhere to get new items, and the other stores around us rely almost entirely on donations. So we always have cool new stuff and lots of repeat customers. He just came to me the other day and was like, we should sell the house. Let's get a big van and we'll live in it, and we can just travel 24/7. He loves traveling. I love traveling, but I cannot imagine selling our house and living in a van. I never imagined I'd live a life with so much traveling, and I definitely never thought I'd be willingly homeless. We would basically just be driving around, picking up things for the store, and then shipping items back or taking them back to the store. There's only 2 other full-time employees and 2 part-time employees that would take care of everything else. I'm not worried about being in a small space with him. We spend like every waking second together. I just don't like the idea of being homeless. It wouldn't be permanent, he said. Just a few years so he could say we did it. I didn't travel at all until I was 21, so I'm still very new to all of this. So I honestly don't know what to do. Should I sell my home? Am I dating a crazy person? I don't think you're dating a crazy person. I just think you're dating somebody who is very ambitious. They clearly found something that they love. They love you and they love their business, and they want to find reasons to get out and travel more. The original poster goes on to say that the guy in the story had been traveling since he was 16. So it's understandable that he has this itch to want to get out and see the world some more. But to sell your house, that's a big commitment. So much already goes into buying a house as it is. But to then willingly give that up just to live in a van is a big lifestyle change. You will never have private space again if you live in a van with someone else. There's never going to be a room you can retreat to just to have some alone time. It sounds like these two get along really well. They love being around each other and they're clearly in love, but I'm worried this might put a wedge between them because nothing brings out someone's true feelings like going on a road trip. My wife hates it when I have fun. I got married 2.5 years ago. We've been together for 7 years before that. We've been having some issues lately. So if my wife comes into my room or in the house and sees me sitting, relaxing, or playing Xbox, she will start making chores for me to do, and sometimes I'll literally already have done them just to get me away from these things. I used to do them all no question, but the more I think about it, the less I want to or feel inclined to do it. For example, she is not a morning person, so I usually take care of our son from 8 o'clock in the morning until noon, which isn't what we agreed on in the beginning, and really is doing a toll on me not being able to sleep, but she genuinely doesn't care. Anyway, this morning when we heard him get up, she started barking at me to go get him, which is weird because I always get him in the morning. I tell her I'm tired, and I get up and I go get my son. My son has this thing where he pulls me in the crib and wants me to lay with him, and I complied. He's smiling and giggling as we're just talking to each other. She walks in and says, "You know you're 185 pounds, and you can't be laying in that bed?" She also said this right before she went straight back to bed, so she literally only said this to me just to be mean. I replied, "Well, babe, you laid in the crib with him 3 nights ago. Isn't that the same thing?" She says, "You weigh 180 pounds, then proceeds to tell me I'm the biggest regret of her life and should have never married me. Why? She literally always tells me I do nothing. I clean up literally every mess my boy makes. Like I follow him and clean as he's playing, cause she freaks out when she wakes up and there's a mess from him playing. Claims I should clean behind him as he plays to ensure a clean house. It's like everything is an issue and nothing is good enough. Also, let me just add that we are financially stable. I make the money and she just spends it. I really don't know why she is so disgusted with me. Granted, I have issues, but I don't hit her. I don't cheat. I think I'm a good father. I just really can't find out what her problem is." This is a tragic situation because it sounds like the wife is just absolutely not engaged in this relationship, let alone in being a mother. I'm not saying that she has to be involved with her kid 24/7, but it sounds like she just doesn't want to take care of him at all. I'm sure there's two sides to this coin, but from what's being described, this is really sad. There's a lot of red flags here, especially her saying that her husband is the biggest regret of her life. What a terrible thing to say to somebody. He should honestly be concerned that his marriage is probably in danger. Couples therapy needs to happen like right away so she can talk about what's going on and start on the road of repairing some kind of relationship. From what I've read, it looks like the guy's trying to be a good father and he's just trying to take care of his kid, but his wife is really not chipping in and helping in the slightest. So in all honesty, these two better work their problems out, or else a divorce is probably incoming. My significant other tried to unalive me in my sleep, and now I am terrified of him. So me and my boyfriend are currently living together and sleep in the same bed. Sometimes he talks in his sleep, and it has happened before that he got up and walked around while asleep, but not for a long time now. Last night, an incident occurred that really terrified me. I woke up to him frantically grabbing the bed sheets and wrapping his arms around me from behind. At first, I thought he was going in for a hug, but then he put me in a chokehold and tried to suffocate me with the bedsheet. Once I realized that this was not a joke or anything like that, I managed to free myself from his grip, but for a few seconds, I really thought that I wouldn't be able to, and that was very scary. Then I pushed him off me and asked what he was doing. He just held the bedsheet tightly in his arms and didn't reply. Then I asked if he was trying to hurt me or something. He replied no in a confused tone and just went back to sleep. I was lying in bed after this, terrified of what might happen once I fall asleep again. It's not like I think he actually wants to hurt me, but I was scared of him doing it while he was asleep by accident. The next morning I asked him about the incident and he laughed about it. He didn't really take my fear seriously. Then he said he remembers me waking him up and asking him whether he wanted to hurt her and being confused. Now I don't really know what to do. I'm afraid of sleeping in the same bed with him again. We've been together for 3 years and this has never happened before. He has hit me and slapped me in his sleep before, but it was never this scary. This is a really scary situation, especially since the guy doesn't realize that he's doing this. It sounds like he needs some kind of sleep study to see exactly what's going on in his head. The lady in this story is totally justified feeling afraid. She could have been seriously hurt or worse by this. I'm not even sure if a sleep study of any kind could help figure this out, but something has to be done. But on the other side of this coin, his sleep activity isn't the biggest issue. In my honest opinion, the biggest issue is how he reacted once he was fully awake. The fact that he was dismissive about what happened and didn't really care about what she thought and about how afraid she was when this was occurring is actually really bad. That's a really big red flag. And if I were her, I probably would not want to stay with someone like that. A crazy Karen tries to steal my doctor's appointment spot. I scheduled an appointment at a CVS Minute Clinic to see the doctor. When my time came, the doctor popped out of her office to grab me, and some absolute crazy Karen came from seemingly nowhere and intercepted the doctor, demanding that her child be seen for a strep test. The doctor said she was already with the patient, which was me, and asked if the Karen had made an appointment. The Karen angrily replied, "No, but it's an emergency." The doctor told her that all the appointment spots were filled for the day, and I swear, this lady acted like the doctor was leaving her child to bleed out in the streets. "What? You're just not gonna help my child then? Where are we supposed to go?" This went back and forth for quite some time, with me getting progressively more angry because it was my time spot and I had other stuff to do. Eventually, someone else, I don't know exactly what their position was, maybe it was the pharmacist, came up to handle the Karen, and the poor doctor nudged her out of the way of the door and ushered me in before closing it super fast. I get it sucks when your kid is sick, but strep isn't remotely serious. From the look of the kid, he didn't even have it. I've had strep several times and the kid looked and sounded fine. If I had $1 for every Karen I've ever had to put up with in my life, I would probably be a millionaire. If you've ever worked in a customer service situation, then you know that some of these Karens can be absolutely ruthless. And I like to look at Karen as a gender neutral term. There are a lot of guys out there that act insane as well. It's the kind of person that just does not care about other people's needs or their wants. It's all about them and their disgusting snot-nosed kids. And this lady is no exception. I'm personally really happy that this lady wasn't able to jump in front of the original poster and take their doctor's appointment. But it doesn't surprise me that this Karen tried to insert themselves and sneak one past the doctor. Thankfully, the doctor and the pharmacist were able to handle this with ease and professionalism, because if that was me, I probably would have lost my cool. And I mean, come on, this lady was freaking out over strep throat. Strep throat is not that serious. I mean, it can become serious, but most situations are just going to be mild cases of strep throat. And if this lady is really that worried about her kid, and if she really thinks it's an emergency, she should go to the hospital, not try to butt in line at a CVS. There's probably an urgent care right next door that she could easily go to. I bet she doesn't want to go to the emergency room because she cares more about money than she does about her kid. And that, in all honesty, is probably the most telling sign that you're dealing with an absolute full-fledged Karen. My boyfriend gets angry when I'm sad. My boyfriend and I have been together for about 1.5 years now. Today I felt very down because of what's happening in the world. I was sad and scared. Normally I have the tendency to keep stuff like this to myself and not talk about it. Today was different. So my boyfriend came home from work and I had already started cooking. We were chopping
vegetables and I said to him, "My heart feels so heavy today. I have world pain," with a sad voice. Not angry, not attacking, just sad. And he said, "Is it because of Ukraine?" And I said, "Yes." He didn't say anything else, just try to comfort me, which I was okay with. I didn't get upset, but stayed more quiet than normal. So we kept on cooking and I also did a bit of small talk. I didn't even think my mood could be a problem for him since it had nothing to do with him. It was fine for me. I wasn't very talkative, but that was all. That's why I was so surprised when suddenly he said, "Are you going to be like this for the entire evening and not talk?" in a very angry tone, which made me really upset. He told me I'm treating him like garbage because I'm not talking to him. He even told me that if someone else saw my behavior, they would agree with him. I'm really hurt and upset because it's not the first time that I get the impression that he can't handle my emotions whenever they are not cheerful or happy. I can't just be myself in a safe space without him getting upset, and especially because I'm not a person that opens up easily. Him basically punishing me for opening up is horrible. We're not talking at the moment, and I don't know how to explain myself or how to change this. I already tried to tell him how I feel, but all he said was that I was in a terrible mood and treating him like garbage last night, which I find so unfair. How can I tell him that me being sad is not a reason to get upset? Sounds like the man in this situation really needs to learn how to read the room. I mean, someone else's bad day is not a shot at you. I mean, this is really childish. If anything, this is honestly very toxic. In the story, the lady even says that the man is 48 years old. I mean, how emotionally immature can you be where you can't even handle somebody's bad day? It seems like he's being super selfish right now. People have other emotions besides happiness. That's life. And there should be room in a relationship for all parties to have emotions and emotional capacity to deal with everybody else's feelings. I mean, this just sounds really abusive. What a terrible place to be. I honestly really feel for this lady. Don't teach your cat to turn off the lights or she will use it against you. I like to read in bed, but I do not have a lamp. When I'm ready to sleep, I have to get up and turn the light off. This is not ideal, as it wakes me up right as I'm trying to go to sleep. Coincidentally, I'm really into training my cat. She knows how to high five, wave, jump through a hoop, etc. So when I ran into the light problem, my first thought was, I'll train the cat to do it. Training her was hard work for both of us. She had to stand on her hind legs on my desk to hit the light switch, and that kind of thing doesn't come naturally to cats. But after 2 weeks of training, she could consistently turn off the light when I asked her to. This is where things went downhill. I had spent 2 weeks teaching my cat that every time she turned off the light, I would give her a treat. Pretty great, right? So it only makes sense that when she decided that turning off the light was the solution to any problem under the sun. I'm reading and not giving her enough pets, turns off the light. I'm in a work meeting and not responding to her meows, she turns off the light. Anytime my cat does not approve of what I'm doing or feels she's being ignored, she turns off the light. Basically, I had to untrain her by stopping the treats and not giving her attention when she flipped the switch. Very sad because for one, it was a cool trick, and for two, untraining was confusing the poor kitty. But I'm happy to report that she has finally stopped leaving me in darkness every time she wants attention. I've now moved on to harmless tricks, hoping that eventually I can teach her how to play blackjack. I guess there's worse things you could teach the cat, like how to open the door. I know some people who own some cats that they can open up doors and get in places you don't want them to get into, and it's an absolute nightmare. Having them turn on and off a lamp is not that bad when compared to the invasion of privacy that someone will have to endure with a door opening cat. It's really cute, and I think it's really funny, but I can understand the frustration. And trying to untrain that cat from doing that kind of behavior must have been a nightmare. But from the sounds of it, the person telling this story needs to get into cat training. The fact that they were able to train their cat to do that is pretty cool. But I'm predicting that if they're going to teach their cat how to slap objects, pretty soon the cat's going to start slapping them. I accidentally found my boyfriend's engagement ring. My boyfriend knows I'm a clean freak, and I'm constantly cleaning everything inside and out, even the bedside drawers. My boyfriend loves when I'm reorganizing his stuff, as long as I don't throw things away without his permission. So I'm cleaning and reorganizing things when I opened up his bedside drawer to organize it again for the 80th time. Inside, I find this huge box after pulling everything out, and I'm thinking in my head it's got to be earrings or something. So I open it up and it's an engagement ring. In my defense, it literally looks like all those boxes that you would find earrings in. So I wouldn't think that there was a ring specifically in there. If anything, a necklace or some other large jewelry. The box itself was really big, so it kind of threw me off. Anyways, he's really good at surprises, and I love being surprised. Now I feel so bad I found it. I put it back immediately and left his drawer a mess so he doesn't know I found it. But I most definitely killed the surprise of not knowing he's planning this and what the ring looks like. We have dated for 4 years, but I didn't have a clue he was planning on it anytime soon. For now, I'm
just going to try to pretend like I don't know what's happening. This is a classic case of the wrong place, the wrong time. I think it's a really cute story that they're planning on getting married, but it's rough that she found out before he was going to tell her. But in all honesty, this is 100% on the boyfriend for not finding a better place to hide it. He knows from this story that she reorganizes and cleans everything. Why would he pick the most obvious spot to put an engagement ring, like his bedside drawer? That is not a good spot. You gotta lock that away, man. You can't just leave that out in the open. Of course she's gonna find it. The other side of me is thinking, well, maybe he wanted her to find it, so maybe he left it there on purpose. But it's such a weird play. Why on earth would he do that? It seems like to me that the boyfriend was just absolutely careless with this engagement ring, and it's his own fault for letting this fall into his girlfriend's hands. And while she's super excited to get married to her boyfriend, at the end of the day, he kind of ruined the surprise on his own without actually doing anything. But I'm sure this will work out, and it sounds like the girlfriend's still really excited about it. Am I the jerk for calling a coworker by the wrong name for 7 months? I started at a new job in August of last year. It's a small company of 5 full-time staff members and 1 part-timer. I am the newest full-time employee by about 7 years, and the youngest by at least 20. I say this all to mean that as a naturally anxious person, I in no way, shape, or form have felt any ill will, false superiority, or any of those other things towards any of my coworkers. I try to keep to myself and be as least bothersome as possible, knowing I am an outsider to their system. I speak quietly and try to be as polite as possible, and have occasionally shared drinks or parts of my lunch I thought they'd enjoy, trying to be perceived as both out of the way and friendly in case hard times come to our business and layoffs end up being on the table. I thought I had been succeeding on this front until a few days ago. For the first several months at the company, I only really interacted with 3 coworkers on a daily basis, and I would speak to our graphic designer named Mandy maybe once a week or so. I have no idea how or why or when, but at some point I messed up her name and called her Mary instead. When she didn't correct me on it, my brain instantly decided her name was Mary from then on. Whenever I spoke to coworkers about Mary, nobody corrected me. In all of my conversations with her, which usually began with me calling her Mary, I was never corrected. Similarly, my brain never clicked and called me a moron when those same coworkers would talk about Mandy. Fast forward to a month ago, and they're beginning to have me train on some of Mandy's tasks to lighten her workload. Once or multiple times a week, I interact with her for longer periods of time, and I somehow still didn't catch on until I saw her business cards a few days ago. I realized with horror that I had been calling Mandy Mary for 7 months. I know it upsets people when you call them by the wrong name repeatedly, as I used to have a teacher in middle school that called me by the wrong name all year. So if I had been corrected a single time, I would have been mortified and corrected myself immediately. Now I'm not sure I shouldn't quit and find a nice hole to die in. So much for trying to be liked by my coworkers. I haven't apologized yet because I don't know how to at this point. And even though I've tried committing Mandy to my brain, on occasion, Mary still slips out. I'm getting better about it, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like enough. I'm just confused as to why nobody has tried to correct me this whole time. I feel like such an idiot. I want to make it up to her and apologize, unless it would somehow make things worse. But I really don't know how to do so without making it weird. I was thinking maybe a cake and an apology note, but I don't want to seem like I think it's silly or somehow worth celebrating. What should I do? This is tragic because there's nothing worse than calling someone by the wrong name and then that person never correcting you for 7 months. I mean, how did nobody say anything for 7 months? That is such a long time. If someone was calling me by the wrong name, I would probably correct them right away and just say, hey, it's this instead of this. But to just let it slide for 7 months, ooh, brutal. I can understand where this person's coming from. I would absolutely want to quit and not be there anymore. How horribly embarrassing is that? And why would the coworkers not say anything? That's actually horribly toxic. It's either they blatantly just didn't say anything because they just didn't care, or they willingly didn't say anything and probably made fun of this person behind their back. I mean, I can see both things happening. It just really sucks that they had to be on the receiving end of this. Am I the jerk for not telling my husband I won the lottery? The lottery winning took place back in August 2014. My husband and I were married in October 2014. It wasn't a fortune, but enough to make a difference. After taxes, it came out to right about $480,000. Most people would be over the moon, but I panicked. I didn't want our life to be turned upside down because we had extra money now. I was still legally single at the time, and so I was able to accept it anonymously without the need to tell anyone else. So I didn't tell anyone else. Not a single soul. Not my husband, my parents, siblings, best friends, anyone. Only the state and
federal governments. On top of that, my husband has a tendency to spend things we don't need and that aren't going to benefit us in the long run. So I didn't want our money to be blown quickly on stupid stuff like cards and clothes. I opened a new bank account with a national credit card union and put the check in. I got started with a financial advisor by the name of Keith, who guided me into investing in local businesses and real estate. And that's that. It's been sitting there since. Flash forward to today. I'm doing dishes, getting ready to start making dinner, and my phone rings. I can't get to it, but I figure I'll call them back. Then I get a text. No big deal. I'll get to it in a minute, but my husband came into the kitchen and glanced at my phone to let me know who texted me and called me, which he always does if my hands are full. It's my financial advisor, Keith. He called and texted me to let me know my account just hit $1 million after one of the energy companies I invested in soared recently. My husband is stunned. He has no clue what to even say, staring at me until he says, "We have $1 million?" I was so flushed, but finally just sat him down and explained the situation. He's very mad at me for never telling him about this. He asks if my family knows, and I tell him that no one knows except the IRS and my financial advisor. It took him a few hours to finally be able to really talk to me. At the end of the silence, he told me he's proud of me for investing into our future, but he needs a few days to clear his head because he feels like I hid a huge part of myself from him. We might just need to take a vacation now. This is a hilarious story because personally, I would not be upset if my wife came to me and said, "Hey, we're millionaires." Like, that's awesome. That's probably the coolest text I could possibly look for. I think it's silly that the guy in this situation is somehow upset over this. Like, dude, your wife is awesome. She made bank and she prepared for your future. The wife goes on to say that they already make good money from both of the jobs that they have, so they're not hurting at all. This is literally just icing on the cake. This is like retirement funds. These people are set for life if things go as planned. I think it's such a cool story, and it's something that you would hope would happen to you. I don't think the lady's the jerk in this situation because I honestly would have done the same thing. I would have done whatever it takes to make sure that my finances are taken care of, and she did everything correct. So good on her for doing this, because honestly, this is going to benefit her and her family in the long run. A crazy Karen chased us with her car. This was like 2 years ago in the fall season. I had recently turned 18 and my friend was 19 at the time. In my country, you have to be 18 before you're able to take the license. And at the time, I had a moped to transport myself to and from school and work. So me and my friend were planning on hanging out that day after school. When the next time came, we took my moped and went off. We lived in a small town, so the roads were small and the max speed was between 40 to 50 kilometers an hour. Nothing was out of the ordinary until a white Volvo was driving very close to us all of a sudden. I yelled to my friend to look behind us carefully so we didn't lose our balance, and she could see that it was a woman holding up her phone, and I could see her holding something in the side mirror. So I sped up a little and she was still keeping up on us. Mind you, she was swerving a bit since she was paying attention to her phone more than her car. I realized that we weren't getting away from her, so I let off the gas and we slowed down substantially. She almost rammed into us, but surprisingly, she found the brake and slowly minimized her speed, but was still incredibly close. Our turn came and we had to stop because of the oncoming traffic, and she was still incredibly close. I could still see her holding up her phone. She was obviously recording us, so I flipped her off. When we did take the turn, I sped up as fast as I could to get away from her, but she gassed her car, not caring about oncoming traffic, and they honked at her. My friend was laughing. I was laughing because even though she's an idiot and chasing us, it was quite hilarious because we did nothing wrong. We had to make another turn and she slowed down a bit, still behind us, and we clearly saw that she held her phone up and pressed it against the passenger window. We both flipped her off. Funny thing was that she didn't see where she was going, so her car swayed a little bit. Complete moron. What I think she was trying to record was my friend, because the helmet she had on was a bicycle helmet. But where I come from, wearing a bicycle helmet is approved on a sitting moped. It's not a normal bicycle helmet, it's more thick and covers the whole head, and not just the upper head, but also down by the ears, which is approved. Thankfully, I never saw her again, but we did see a car a lot like hers driving around my neighborhood a while back. She couldn't find my moped either because I always parked it behind our house in the backyard. Thankfully, I never dealt with her again. What an absolute psychopath. Mopeds and motorcycles are some of the most vulnerable driving apparatuses on the road. You are completely exposed to the elements with just a helmet and the collective trust of everybody around you. So the fact that this lady was riding this person's bumper, trying to get a picture of him because of some weird helmet they had on, is just crazy. This
lady could have seriously hurt them, not to mention everybody else around her. She could have swerved onto oncoming traffic. Absolutely insane. I'm sure she would have wished she had put her phone down if she actually did end up hurting somebody. I was late for class, but Murphy's Law decided to make me even more late. This last year, I've been teaching Spanish as a volunteer a few days a week. To do so, I have to go to a nearby town, but that's not an issue since the bus that gets me there stops just in front of my door at 9:20 and arrives at the cultural center at 9:50, so I'm always 10 minutes early to talk to my colleagues and get ready. Now, last week, I went to the bus stop like always, waited for the bus like always, and when it approached, I signed for him to stop like always. I saw the guy looking at me, using the turn signals to stop and going away, just like that. When I recovered from my surprise, I started to think that the next bus wouldn't be here until 9:40 and I would be late, unless I ran to the underground station 20 minutes away from my home and do a few transfers, then get in the line. Then I might get in time. There's also a bus that would take me to the station, but I didn't want to risk it. So I ran all the way and got there in just 15 minutes. The bus arrived there at the same time as me, but I didn't care that much because I could do it. So I jumped on the train. They just got to the station, and luckily, when doing the transfer to the train line, it was in the station too. I looked at the phone and saw that it was 9:45, and I was going to make it, but I texted my colleague saying that I might be a bit late just in case. So when I got out of the train to take the final transfer to the underground, I checked my jacket pockets as a reflex and found out the one where I always put my phone was empty and the zipper was open. So I jumped again in the train while the doors were closed and asked the guy that's sitting in the same spot as me if he saw something. Then we both crouched to look around, and that's when I felt something in my pants pocket. Yeah, I had the phone all along. So after apologizing for being an idiot, I got out in the next station to go back. I probably would have been on time if I didn't take the train and I had just taken the second bus in the beginning. Also, if I just knew my phone was in my pocket, it would have saved me the trouble of looking for a phone that wasn't missing. Finally, I got to my station, got to my destination without any more incidents, and got scolded by my students for being almost an hour late. The moral of the story? If something goes wrong, let it be. Trying to fix it will only make it worse. This is a classic case of if it can get worse, it definitely will get worse. And this just had a domino effect. The guy misses the train because the bus driver just, didn't look at him, or maybe he just saw through him, and then he decides to try and take the train underground to get to his destination quicker, only to then lose his phone on the train and then have to look for it, only to then find out that his phone's in his pocket. And at the end of the day, he's already an hour late for his class. Not a fun way of starting your day. At the end of the day, sometimes the quickest path is just to go straight forward, accept your fate, and take the next bus. My future wife doesn't know how much money I make. I'm 37 and she is 34. We have been together for several years, and this fall we are supposed to get married. But our relationship is built on a single lie. I never once told her about my finances during the entire relationship. She has no idea how much I really make or how much I have, other than enough to support myself. She sometimes questions things I buy. The other day, I bought a $200 coffee maker to replace my Starbucks coffee, and she asked how I could afford it. I told her I got it on sale and it wasn't that much. This was obviously a lie. I have saved and invested for most of my life, and I plan to retire when I'm 45, which she doesn't know either. I have had big boy jobs for many years and want to transition to a non-career position. However, I am reluctant to tell her anything about this. I have an income that can be described as well off by local standards. She has no idea I have enough money to do whatever I want. I am afraid if she found out that I have hundreds of thousands of dollars split between multiple banks and even more in investments, she would be extremely disappointed that I projected myself in another way. I am not sure how this all plays out. Should I come clean and disclose my finances to her? Should I hire a lawyer? Or should I just keep lying and go ahead with the wedding in spite of what it might do to my relationship with her? This is a tricky one because I can see his apprehension in telling her. He obviously doesn't want to rock the boat with someone he's about to get married to, but at the same time, finances is an extremely important topic to have down before you get married. In most cases, they're probably going to combine finances where they both have just one bank account. In most cases. And so it's probably a little weird to drop on your future wife by saying, hey, I'm actually super loaded and I plan on retiring when I'm 45, whether you like it or not. It seems like this guy has not considered his wife in this equation in the slightest. It's awesome that he's rich and he's got a lot of money, but she should be the person to know about that. There's a chance that his future wife could be really hurt that he didn't say anything about this sooner. He obviously put a lot of work and thought and energy into his finances and planning the future he wanted, but he didn't really consider her at all. Marriage is about planning the future and growing old together and being there for each other. And it seems like she's just going to be at a huge disadvantage here, trying to mold to what this guy already worked out for the rest of his life. So yeah, he needs to tell her like right away. You don't want to go into a marriage with any kind of lie lingering
in the background, even if it's something that you should have told him but you didn't. My girlfriend breaks up with me on a monthly basis. I'm looking for some advice on what to do. As the title says, she breaks up with me and wants to get back together very frequently. Should I let this behavior continue? The last time she stormed out of my room is because I said a joke on how she smelled, and she didn't like it, to which I apologized immediately, but she said she will lose her self-worth if she stays with me after that. Things like this make me wonder what will happen if the relationship actually hit hard times in the future. I dropped her off at her house. She then called me last night and was telling me how I don't care about her, and if I did, I would have reached out to her. I told her that she was the one that ended it, and how people don't usually end relationships for reasons like this. She says that's the only way she knows how to react. Now what I want to know is, should I get back together with her and help her overcome this, or just stay broken up? She said she wants to start therapy to try and fix this issue of hers. Is it worth it to stay or still just to go? In all honesty, when he gets back together with her, she's just going to repeat the cycle again. So his best bet is just to get out, and to get out fast. She clearly has issues, and this is just not an appropriate way to react to anybody. I mean, he was clearly in this context just saying a joke about her, which people in relationships do, by the way, and she overreacted completely by saying that she wants to discontinue this relationship entirely. I mean, come on. If that's not an overreaction, I don't know what is. And good on her for wanting to go into therapy to try and fix her issues, but it sounds like this has been going on for a really long time. And I think if I was the guy in this situation, I would have to know when enough was enough. So it's really up to him. Does he want to try and help his girlfriend get the help she needs? Or does he want to find someone who's going to want to be with him and not break up with him once a month? I'll take the second choice if you ask me. I used coconut oil right before I used the toilet, and water from our bidet got everywhere. I bought a bidet online during the great toilet paper shortage of 2020. It was a cheap one that goes right into the line and isn't powered by anything, so no warm water. It seemed like a great idea at the time, but it got shoved into a corner and forgotten about. It would need an extra part before it could be installed. Only use cold water, and we never ran out of toilet paper, so it stayed in its box in the corner for nearly 2 years. I have Crohn's disease and psoriasis. Both are autoimmune disorders that can flare up for a number of reasons. My psoriasis has been under control until recently, when it flared up because of the immune response I had to my COVID vaccines. For the first time in my life, I got inverse psoriasis on my nether regions. Unfortunately, to add insult to injury, my Crohn's decided to flare up as well, so now I'm using the bathroom 6 to 12 times a day and wiping my butt raw every time. Fun times. But then I remembered the bidet in the corner. I got the extra hose from the hardware store, and my husband helped me install it about a month ago. Instant relief. I was so worried about the cold water being a shock, but it was wonderfully refreshing. It has a dial adjustment, but even on the lowest setting, it'll spray across the bathroom if there's no one there to deflect it back into the toilet. Even if you're off center just a little bit, the stream will shoot up behind or in front of you, so you have to be careful to adjust yourself properly before turning it on. I've been using it every time I use the toilet, just to be sure I'm nice and clean down there. Since I have psoriasis and sensitive skin, I use coconut oil as lotion. When I was getting ready this morning, I lubed up from head to toe and got dressed as usual. Right before I headed downstairs, I decided that I should use the bathroom first. I finished doing my business, turn on the bidet on the middle setting, just a light stream to rinse a bit. As I turned it on, I go to scoop back a bit because I am lubed up like crazy from the coconut oil, and I slide all the way forward on the toilet and stop just barely before falling off. The bidet starts shooting water straight up and all over the toilet, the floor, my clothes, and even my hair. I'm able to get the bidet turned off in a matter of seconds, but my bathroom and I both look like we gave a toddler a bath. I had to dry the towel, the floor, and put the bath mats in the dryer. Then I had to change my clothes, dry off, and basically get ready for the day again. Yeah. Nothing like getting ready twice in the morning. Crohn's disease and psoriasis is a nasty combo, so it's understandable that they would use coconut oil to try and alleviate at least one of the problems. As an American, I haven't fully embraced the whole bidet thing, but I have international friends who absolutely swear by them, so clearly there's something to it, but I personally can't get behind it. It's a little weird, it sounds uncomfortable, but apparently it's fantastic. But I guess if you have Crohn's disease and you're going to be on the toilet a lot anyways, a bidet is probably your best friend. I knew a guy who was on the toilet all the time because of Crohn's disease. It is no joke, and it can be quite miserable. So if this provides some kind of relief, then good on you. Go for it. My girlfriend refused to get me toilet paper when it counted the most, so I broke up with her. My girlfriend and I have been together for around 6 months. We were on a road trip heading across Texas to see her parents. At one point, we needed gas and stopped at a gas station. She went to the bathroom while I was pumping gas, and as I finished, I started feeling a little sick to my stomach. I rushed to the bathroom and sit down and start taking care of business, only to realize too late night that there was no toilet paper in the bathroom. I decided to text my girl and ask her to bring me some out to the women's bathroom. She replies that she can't because she's already in the car, as if it is impossible for her to do me a solid by walking back to grab me some toilet paper. This really does bother me because I've gone out of my way to help her in a pinch, like going to the store on my day off to get her some Midol and bring it to her job to help her with stomach cramps. Her being unwilling to walk 10 yards to do me a solid favor comes across as her being unwilling to put in much effort. Am I overreacting? No, I honestly don't think he's overreacting. This is a super simple thing. Like, it's not that hard to go and help out your girlfriend and or boyfriend with getting them toilet paper. I mean, this is simple, right? The fact that she just left him stranded in the bathroom with nothing to take care of his business is horrible. I mean, how lazy and inconsiderate can you possibly be to just leave your boyfriend stranded in the bathroom with no means of getting out, if you know what I mean? I mean, to be fair, he has helped her out in a pinch as well. He's gotten her medication for when she wasn't feeling well. The least she could do is step out of the car, walk maybe 10 feet into the bathroom, and get him some toilet paper. I mean, come on, like seriously. The guy goes on to give an update where he talks about how he was planning on breaking up with his girlfriend already because apparently she's just awful. He states that this is literally the straw that broke the camel's back. And good on him, to be honest, because nobody needs this kind of drama in their life. At the end of the day, you're going to want to be with someone who has your back. Literally in this case. My girlfriend broke up with me after I refused to pay. I gave her $2,000 to $3,000 every single month, sometimes more, for 2 years. She had a bank debt as well, which I paid off. This weekend, I said enough is enough. We never agreed for me having to give her money. It just happened naturally over time because of life, stuff, surprise bills, etc. And this weekend, she had the audacity to tell me, I want a man that supports me, and if you don't support me financially, we should just be friends. I don't even know where my head is at right now. I never thought it would happen to me, but I got played hard. I'm sick to my stomach. So much for real love. Let my experience serve as yet another warning, guys. I feel physically sick. This is terrible because the original poster here absolutely got played. The lady in this story did not care about him. She only cared about the money that he was providing every month. And he was giving her $2,000 to $3,000 every single month. That is crazy. It's sad to say, but this lady only saw this guy as a checkbook who would write checks for her every month whenever she needed it. And he was already paying off her debt from some bank account. The man got used, and that's just so sad. And if she really can't see that he's more than just a checkbook and money in the bank, then this guy has no reason to stick around with her. She's an absolute terrible person, and he absolutely deserves better. A Karen tries to stop a medical emergency, demanding that her son get a balloon from a clown. So we are on vacation, my parents and me, and my husband. After a 12-hour drive and only 6 hours of sleep, we go to breakfast. My dad is so nice and loves kids. He is a professional clown. So while waiting on his waffles, he starts making balloon animals for the kids. My husband and I had already sat with our plates. I'm opening up my syrup pouch when a worker runs by and says to the front desk across the hall, "Call 911, a lady just fell." She was right near me when she said this. So I turned and my mom was on the ground. My dad was still making balloons because a wall blocked his view of the waffle station. I ran past yelling, "Mom." As I passed him, I shouted, "Dad, Mom fell." He stops making balloons suddenly and comes to check on his wife. That's when Karen and her kid come into play. Her kid was one of the ones that didn't get a balloon because he stopped to check on his wife. While standing over his wife, the Karen comes up and says, "How dare you not make a balloon for my kid just because he has Down syndrome? You need to make him one right now." My dad pointed to my mom on the ground. That's my wife. The Karen said, "I don't care. Don't exclude my son." The ambulance had arrived and I left to lead them to her while giving medical history to save time, and they pushed the Karen away to check on my mom. That completely shot down the Karen as the other people at breakfast were giving her dirty looks and giving the whole situation a wide berth, except for a lawyer I had to chase off. My husband overheard the exchange between the Karen and my dad. He went on to tell me that after this all cooled down, my dad went up to this lady and called her an absolute Karen of a person. I guess we were lucky because she couldn't ask to speak to my dad's manager. Some people have no self-awareness of what's actually going on in an emergency situation. This lady's a prime example of it. She would rather have her kid get a balloon animal than a medical emergency getting addressed. I think the biggest silver lining here is that the Karen doesn't have a manager to try and complain to. Am I the jerk work for warning a nurse that she might pass out during a medical procedure. This actually happened 3 days ago, but today is my day off, so I have some time to write this down. I am a doctor in a hospital. One of the procedures we do is called a bone marrow biopsy. It is a procedure where we go inside the bone, where the factory of all blood cells is, and get a sample. It's done in the room at the bedside. No need for an operating room or anything. We usually use a special needle to get into the hip bone from behind as the patient is lying flat on their face. It sounds scary, but it's a fairly minor procedure. It takes about 20 to 30 minutes. Today I had to do this for one of my patients. Usually I require some assistance, someone to hand me things when I am sterile and to take things from me. Anyone can do it. Usually I have an eager medical student and I explain what I am doing as I go so he or she can learn. Today I didn't. So I asked for help from one of the nurses and they gave me one of the travelers who are there to help. While I am preparing the field and getting ready, I said how thankful I was for her to come and help. I had never seen her before and I know the floor nurses fairly well at this point. That's when she told me she is a traveler. I asked if she ever saw a bone marrow biopsy before and she said no. I then asked if she had lunch and she said no. So I decided it was a good idea to warn her. I said something like, hey, just a heads up, a lot of people seeing this for the first time get a little woozy, so if you start feeling it, let me know. And it's true. I have had a few nurses, med students get woozy while watching. Something about the needle pushing through the bone that gets to people. There is a scratching noise that you can audibly hear as the needle rubs against the surface of a bone. People feel it in their core. It's also a very forceful procedure. Bones are hard and I have to apply a great deal of pressure to make my way in there. And also the fact that when we pull out the marrow, we are technically pulling fluid out of a vacuum, and that can sometimes be painful to the patient and the viewers to behold. Boy oh boy, did she not like that. She rolled her eyes and huffed and puffed at me and said,
"Don't you worry about that, honey,"
with the full weight of the condescension that honey can carry.
"I've been a nurse for 15 years. I've been a trauma and ER nurse for most of it. I have seen metal spikes and machetes pulled out of all sort of holes on patients' bodies. I think I'll be alright."
She was intentionally rude and antagonistic. I stopped for a second and looked at her, trying to decide how to respond. But after a split second, I decided it wasn't worth it. I'm not a confrontational person normally, and I've been around long enough to know that it's not worth it to engage. So I just said, okay. I genuinely didn't really care. I just wanted to finish my procedure in peace and move on to the next patient during my very busy day. Well, what do you know? Minutes into the procedure, I got my needle into the bone marrow space and I am starting to pull out the liquid marrow. This is the painful part. The patient grunted and I apologized. Not much I can do about this part. All of a sudden, I hear a thud. I turned around to find said nurse on the ground out cold. I call her name. Nothing. This was obviously a problem. I had to leave my sterile field, interrupt the procedure, and get help. The other nurses called a rapid response, which is an overhead page that we typically call when a patient is looking suddenly ill, and we need extra hands. The nurse ended up in the emergency department. She is thankfully all right. This story is great because it takes a nurse who is absolutely rude and disrespectful, and it humbles them a little bit. I'm kind of glad this happened to them, only because I found out that they're actually all right at the end of it. Why would someone act like this when a doctor's trying to warn them ahead of time of something that might cause them anguish of some kind? I mean, that's just absolutely downright rude. The nurse in this story should be ashamed of themselves, and the doctor did the right thing of trying to give them as much information about something they've never seen before. And the doctor's not kidding. That bone marrow procedure is not nice to look at, so I don't blame him for trying to warn the nurse ahead of time. I went to a pub and almost became a father. This happened probably 20 years ago, but I was reminded of my misadventure by another story on Reddit. In my university days, I used to go out drinking every weekend, and one such night out, I see this really attractive girl at my local bar. I myself had had a few too many, so I approach her and we start talking, and for some reason, it's going really well. Eventually, she asked me if I wanted to take her home. I was interested, so she told me she has to let her friends know she is leaving, and also to see if the said friends can give us a ride there. She comes back with this huge angry-looking guy and tells me where we are going. We all hop into his car, and he drives us to a beach just out of town. I admit I was a little bit worried, but I was in my early 20s and thought myself invulnerable, so I still went with him. They're in the front seat, the whole time arguing in what I assume was Romanian as well. They offer me some herb, but I decline as I was already feeling a bit uncomfortable. Luckily, nothing happens, questions, and eventually they ask for my address, and we head over there. But when we arrive, the girl tells me she will go and drop her friend off and come back. I tried staying awake, but at 3 or 4 in the morning, I was asleep, and if she did come back, I never heard her knock. In the morning, I just thought that was weird, but I was probably lucky nothing bad happened. The following weekend, I'm at home drinking in preparation to go out on the town again when someone is knocking on my door. I open the door and it's her, the Romanian girl I met at the pub. Then I look down and she has a baby in front of her. I look back at her confused, and she asks me if she could leave the baby with me, as she has to go into town and meet some guy just for the night, she says. I was bewildered and just apologized, shutting the door in her face. I still don't understand what the deal was. Maybe she thought I was trustworthy enough to babysit. I still wonder to this day how I avoided a bigger mess up. It sounds like this guy got super lucky. These people were clearly going to do something weird. I mean, the automatic red flag for me is the fact that he was able to get home and not have anything weird happen to him. Like, the way that he's describing this is exactly how someone would get kidnapped, and that's like super scary. And this lady was trying to pawn her kid off to him to like babysit or something like that. That sounds super sketchy as well. I guarantee you, if that guy had let that baby come into his house and he supposedly babysat it, that baby would then be his. I guarantee you she was just looking for someone to try and give this baby to, and that is absolutely insane. I told my family I'm volunteering to help out in Ukraine, and they said they'll disown me if I go. I considered all of the facts and made the decision wholeheartedly. I am a 37-year-old male living in Philadelphia. I'm on the verge of homelessness, and various reports are saying that the Ukrainian government is paying volunteers up to $2,000 a day. I'm not going because of the money or the glory. I'm doing it because it feels like the right thing to do. I was denied the opportunity to join the American military due to a slight but properly medicated mental illness. I have evaluated all of the options, and I am completely fine with any outcome, even if I die. I will die if I become homeless, so I may as well go to Ukraine and make my sacrifice worth something. Despite all of this, my family has freaked out, even threatening to disown me if I go to Ukraine, regardless of if I return home with enough money to buy a house and live somewhat independent. They are rather serious supporters of Russia for some reason. My family has been trying everything to stop me from doing this, short of offering to actually help me out of the situation that actually made me decide to do this. If I go, I could make something of myself and even possibly get myself out of a bad situation. But being disowned by my family means that I lose all contact with them, even to the point where they would ignore any correspondence I would send regarding my safety while in Ukraine and after I return home. I lose the chance to claim death benefits when they pass on and will be written out of everyone's will. They aren't even offering to store my belongings while I'm overseas. It's making me second guess everything. What should I do? I think the original poster has got it all wrong. The OP is not going to be coming back from Ukraine with enough money to buy a house and live somewhat independent, as he puts it. Like, that's not how this is going to work. And based on some of the comments that I'm seeing and some of the research people have put in, it does not look like there's any legitimate organization that's paying people $2,000 a day without some kind of stipulation attached. Apparently, this is like a 3-year service deal. This guy also claims that his family's like pro-Russian or something like that, but he hasn't shown any evidence of that, so it's hard for me to take it at face value. It sounds like this is someone who's making a really bad decision to fix a really bad situation. I personally don't believe anything about this post. I mean, $2,000 a day is ridiculous, and it's not happening. The situation going on in Ukraine is incredibly dangerous, and I'd be surprised if he even came home alive. I kind of don't blame his family for telling him, hey, don't go and do this. This is nuts. If anything, it looks like they're just trying to look out for his well-being. Overall, it sounds like this guy just needs help getting back on his feet, and he's looking for desperate measures to try and get some kind of financial footing. But going to Ukraine and volunteering is not worth it. $2,000 a day is not going to matter when you're dead. So yeah, I'm not totally convinced on what I'm hearing, but I really hope this guy gets the help that he needs. My boyfriend got mad at me because I didn't bring him lunch. Long story short, sometimes I bring lunch for my boyfriend when he's at work. I usually order via Uber Eats, then pick it up to give it to him. Sometimes I would sit in my car and eat with him and spend time with him when he's on break. I have a midterm tomorrow, and usually every Sunday I go to a cafe pretty far away from my neighborhood with my friend. I already woke up late because I was on my phone home with him late at night and was an hour late to pick her up. I told him in the morning when I woke up that I can't bring him lunch, so I don't know why he's bringing it up a few hours later. Basically, I leave my house and pick up my friend, and we head over to the cafe. I get to the cafe, and I see a bunch of messages from my boyfriend saying, "You're so close to me. Why can't you bring me lunch? Yet you would drive miles away to a cafe? What's the difference of missing an hour of studying?" I replied saying that I woke up late and kept my friend waiting for so long we didn't make any detours and went straight there. And this midterm is super important, and I need as much time as I can get. Plus, the cafes near my place are all super packed on weekends, and this is the only spot that actually has a good environment for studying. He gets petty and starts arguing about how I could have just taken an hour to bring him lunch, and I got fed up, so I told him to drop it. I told him I'm sorry and I love him, and I'll see him a later time. I said I'll make it up to him by ordering food and delivering it straight to him, and he just says, "No, I don't want it." I'm so sick of this, and I tried so hard to reason with him, only for him to shoot me down and nitpick at the smallest details. I sent a few more text messages trying to make him feel better, but he's flat out ignoring me. What should I say to him when I see him? My friend jokingly said I should buy him lunch and show up and make him feel guilty for being an idiot, but I was like, nah, this midterm is more important. The guy in the story is just being selfish. I mean, how can he not understand that his girlfriend needs to get some studying done? Like, midterms are no joke. Like, you gotta be ready for those. And so the guy is just being completely irrational. That, or he's jealous that his girlfriend is actually having to do something that might be less stressful than whatever work he's doing. I know if I was in the guy's situation, I would probably want to be at a cafe studying something interesting instead of grueling away dealing with customer service or something like that. Both of the people in this story are college-age students, so I bet the guy has some job that he just absolutely despises and would rather be with his girlfriend or eating lunch on a break or something. But the way he's acting is just absolutely immature. She didn't do anything wrong by not getting him lunch. She has no obligation to get it to him. She loves him and they love each other, obviously, but like, this is kind of weird. To just flat out expect your girlfriend to just drop whatever she's doing just to go get you lunch? No, that's not how this works. And yeah, I'm with the friend. She absolutely should have got him lunch anyways and guilt tripped him, because two can play that game. My boyfriend made out with a girl at a club in front of my face. I've been dating my boyfriend for over 2 years now. We live together, but have been doing long distance for over a year since we go to different colleges. It has been a bit of an adjustment, and we have struggled with the change. I go home every weekend to our apartment to see him though. I really hoped we would get married in the next year or so after graduation. But the other weekend, him and I, along with some friends, went out to the club to have fun. The night seemed to be going great. Then, all of a sudden, I turn and I see him making out with some random girl. I was so shocked. I thought I was imagining things, but one of our friends saw it too. I immediately left the club and felt like I was having a panic attack. He came back home about an hour later. The next day, he claims he was blacked out and had one too many and doesn't remember anything, and that he is sorry for what he did. I don't know what I should do. I love him a lot, and this is the guy I thought I was for sure going to marry. But at the same time, I consider this cheating, and that's a horrible thing to do. If this lady had any sense about her, she would absolutely drop him to the curb. This kind of behavior is unacceptable. He did this right in front of her face. I can't even imagine of staying with someone after they did something like that. And he did it while she was there. Having one too many is not a good excuse for cheating on your girlfriend, and she should absolutely dump him immediately. My childhood best friend is marrying a man she's cheated on multiple times, and he has no idea. So a couple weeks ago, my best friend Diana messaged me saying that she was pregnant and getting married in around 3 months. I was initially really excited for her and was planning on booking my tickets until I realized that the man she was marrying was someone she had pretty heavily abused and might not even be the father of her kid. I should first establish that I haven't lived in the same country as Diana for 10 years now and only knew about her lifestyle and choices from things she told me and evidence she's shown. From what I know, her life had kind of spiraled a fair bit from when I left, and she was partaking in really bad substances, as well as getting into some questionable relationships. I've tried talking to her, but she wasn't very accessible from where I was, and eventually, I just settled on hoping for the best. Since then, she's kind of cleaned up her act aside from a couple hiccups. When she first met her now fiancé, he was good for her. I remember visiting around 5 years ago when they first started talking, and she seemed excited but wary seeing as it was her first relationship with a guy. They had started dating when we were around 18 and 19, and from the outside it looked like they were doing pretty well. However, a year or so into it, she came to me telling me that they had broken up and it was her fault. I asked her what she meant, and she described in detail all the ways that she had emotionally and verbally abused him. She seemed to regret it though, and the years following would date other
other men as she held on to the idea that her former boyfriend was the one that got away. 3 years after their breakup, Diana reached out to him again, asking him for a second chance. She said that she completely cleaned up her act and would never hurt him again, telling him that her biggest regret in life was losing him. With all things considered, he took her back and they started dating again. It's been around 2 years since then. However, around a year ago, she came to me with a confession. She had been cheating on this man for months now, with a man from her workplace. The man was married and with kids. I obviously told her off about it and asked her to break it off. She eventually told me she did. After a couple of weeks and some stern conversations, she eventually told me she did, so I thought that was that. I still have my doubts though. I also told her that she needs to tell her boyfriend about this. She refused, saying that it might make him do something drastic, as his mental health wasn't super good. I didn't think I had the right to tell her boyfriend about what had been going on, seeing as I was far away and never actually met him in person. I was also afraid that she was right. If I told him and something did happen, I could never forgive myself. This probably makes me a jerk, but part of me also thought that they would break up eventually anyways, but they didn't. He got her pregnant and now they're getting married. If I said anything now, I risk ruining 3 lives. I still love my friend despite how dysfunctional she can be sometimes, and she did seem to keep her promise that she wouldn't emotionally and verbally abuse him anymore. But there is a real possibility that my friend lied about cutting ties with the other man and the baby might not be her current boyfriend's. How should I approach this situation without making things worse? Oh man, this one's horrible. The person by the name of Diana in this story is absolute hot garbage across the board. They're abusive, they've done some illegal substances, they've lied and cheated on their boyfriend multiple times, and there's a chance that the baby they're currently carrying is not their current boyfriend's. Like, what is happening? And this friend is stuck in the middle of all of this. Meanwhile, Diana's boyfriend has no idea what's going on. I think the person in this story has it all wrong. They're worried about ruining lives, but the person in this story by the name of Diana is the one doing that to herself. She's abusive and a cheater, and that poor man deserves the right to make the decision. And sure, the baby might not have a father growing up if things go south, but just think about how devastating this is going to be for that man if he finds out 10 to 15 years later that this is not actually his kid. Either way, this is going to end poorly for that child. In my opinion, I would absolutely let the boyfriend know that his soon-to-be wife Diana cheated on him, has been very abusive, and has been very dishonest. If I was about to get married to my spouse, I would want to know if she was cheating on me. I would not want to be with someone like that. And I'm willing to bet that the boyfriend probably would not want to be with Diana if he knew what was actually going on. Regardless of friendships with Diana, it's time to step up and do the right thing. A crazy Karen pushes down the ladder I'm standing on, and I ended up breaking my collarbone. This happened 1 week ago, a Monday, my worst day in over 5 years. I'm a locksmith by trade, and the job requires me to be up on ladders fixing doors and locks and whatever else is broken on a door. I was working on the main entrance of a secondhand store. Sometimes I have to block off an entryway to fix a door, and if I do, I always try to find another option for customers to enter and exit the building. I opened an emergency exit door off to the right, maybe 10 feet away of where I was working, to make sure there was a door they could use. I'm working away, minding my own business up on my ladder, listening to my audiobook on my Bluetooth headset, when an entitled Karen and her child walks towards me.
Excuse me, I need to get into the store.
I tried to explain her that the entryway was blocked for now and that there was another option, but she just wouldn't have it.
I need it now. You can't block the door. You need to get out of my way.
I then, in an annoyed voice, said, "There is a door right over there. You can go in."
No, this is closer.
Eventually, I just said, "Look, stop bothering me and go to the other door." This is when Karen takes things to the next level. And by the next level, I mean she gets arrested. Karen was not taking any of my yelling at her. She grabs her son by the wrist and tries to climb under my ladder while I'm on it. Her large purse catches the side rung of my ladder and pulled it over, sending me, my tools, and the motor of the handicap operator I was working on smashing to the ground. I fell on my shoulder, breaking my collarbone and dislocating my shoulder. The motor hit the ground and shattered, and the ladder
fell on her and her son. A cashier who saw the whole thing through the window rushed over to see if I was okay. I said, no, something is broken. Call the police and an ambulance. They arrive and the police take statements, and I tell them I want to press charges before I was loaded up in the ambulance and taken to the hospital. The kid's father came to pick up his son, who was not hurt thankfully, and the Karen was taken away in handcuffs. No word yet on a court date or anything. This story is actually insane because it goes on to say that the lady ended up having to pay $30,000 in damages and ended up having 4 years in federal prison with 2 years on probation. She lost her son, she lost her marriage, she literally lost everything because of this, all because she couldn't use another door just to get into a store. The guy in the story had everything paid for him in the end, and this lady ended up paying for all of it. I'm super happy that the guy was able to get out of this on top and that this Karen absolutely got what was coming to them. I almost burned down my apartment. Last night after work, I decided to sit on my patio and smoke some herb while I was watching the sunset. A couple of hours later, I noticed a strong smell of smoke and fire. I live in Southern California, so I assumed it was a local brush fire somewhere, but I couldn't find anything online about it. I even posted about it in my local subreddit asking if anyone else smelled smoke. The smell got stronger and stronger, to the point it was hard to breathe. I walked all around my apartment to make sure nothing was burning, but found nothing. I went back to my patio a couple of times, and the smell was very strong outside, so I assumed there must be a fire somewhere, and smoke was blowing my direction. Jump ahead to an hour ago. I come home from being out all day, and my apartment still smells like smoke. I was confused. I walked out to my patio and randomly started moving things around. I picked up one of those clay planter pots that was filled with dirt, and it burned my hand. Somehow I must have put ash in the pot full of dirt, and it started a fire that smoldered for 16 hours. I'm still not sure how dirt caught on fire. The pot was sitting on a carpet. I live in a 40-unit building. This could have been bad. This guy got super lucky because dirt can have a lot of organic material in it, like bark and leaves, that is like super flammable. So it kind of depends on what kind of dirt he put in there. But yeah, he could have started a very serious fire. I mean, what you do in your spare time's all good and it's up to you, but you got to be careful where you put your ashes, especially if you're in California where fires are such a big problem. Be safe, be smart, and just don't get things burned down. I found my boyfriend on Tinder. My boyfriend and I are just getting ready to move in with each other in like a week. We met on Tinder 3 years ago and have been dating ever since. I recently talked to him about some of his toxic behavior and how it needs to stop before he moves in. He agreed. Yesterday, I received a screenshot from a mutual of a Tinder profile with his picture and name along with his correct age. I was in shock, but this is not the first time. A couple months ago, another girl told me this, but didn't have any screenshots. I confronted my boyfriend and he denied it was him and got angry with me that I would even think it was him. I haven't confronted him yet, but I know he will deny it. Am I stupid for believing it isn't him? Do people make fake Tinder accounts of real people and impersonate them often? Or is this truly him and I've just been a fool? I think people do make Tinder accounts with other people just to try and catfish other people, but this is too much of a coincidence for it not to be him. The first time I can understand where it's just anecdotal, where you don't have any proof, but this time there's concrete evidence, there's literal screenshots of him on Tinder. That's super suspicious. I think this next conversation this lady's going to have with her boyfriend is going to be very crucial on whether or not they stay together or even move in together. But if this guy actually is on Tinder while also having a girlfriend, this is absolutely tragic. And this guy is 100% a piece of garbage. I got caught cheating on a history test. I recently remembered yet another core middle school memory. So here we go. This one was in 8th grade. I had a history teacher who was pretty chill and had us grade our own tests. We just got a red pen and marked the ones we got wrong as he read all the answers aloud. The test we were taking was pretty hard. I don't remember exactly what it was on, but almost the whole class struggled, myself included. While we were grading, I was getting a ton of them wrong. I probably got like half the test wrong, so I decided to change my answers. I would erase my wrong answers and write down the right ones in place of it. Then I kept about 2 answers wrong so it wouldn't be suspicious that I got 100% while everyone else got a 60 or 70%. I got 92% by cheating, but since I had done the extra credit, I got 5 points extra, totaling to a 97%. He had us tell him our grade out loud for him to put in his grade book, but we could go up if we didn't want to say it out loud. So when he called my name, I said 97. Everyone was looking at me like I was a ghost. He gave me candy and then at the end of class collected our tests. I thought I got away with it, but when I went to class the next day, he called me up to the front during class. He proceeded to hand me 2 tests and asked me to spot the differences. Both tests had my name and handwriting on them, but one had like 9 answers wrong and one had 2. It hit me that he made copies of our tests to check if we were changing our answers, and he had caught me red-handed. He made me tell the entire class that I cheated and then gave me a 5%. I asked why I got a 5% and not a 0, and he said because I did the extra credit. He made me go sit down after that, and the entire class laughed their butts off. I wanted to cry out of embarrassment. I ended up having my schedule changed and never went anywhere near that classroom again. I got teased until my sophomore year of high school over it. I thought I would never live it down. I think this is a pretty honest lesson that cheating never wins. Like, there's a chance you could get away with it, but at the end of the day, you're risking it big. The teacher is a genius for making copies of the tests before he had his students grade them, because he caught this person red-handed. In all honesty, it's just not worth cheating. It's better just to get the 0 or just to fail the test in general than it is to risk getting caught cheating. That's almost worse than failing. But at least this lesson stuck and he probably won't cheat anytime in the future. Today I messed up by accidentally mixing bleach and vinegar. This happened over an hour ago. I'm currently sitting outside, getting fresh air and soaking in my shame. I'm so disappointed in myself. Today was the day I decided that I would take apart and deep clean my dishwasher. After pulling all of the parts out and scrubbing anything detachable, I started on the actual walls of the dishwasher. I had some stubborn stains that I was trying to scrub with vinegar. I had diluted the vinegar with a little bit of water on the door of the dishwasher. No matter how hard I scrubbed, the stains weren't coming off. So my big brain decided to go grab the bleach since it's so good at removing stains. I grabbed the bottle and poured some into the dishwasher, right into the vinegar. I kneeled down and scrubbed for a minute before I realized the smell. I immediately knew I messed up. I closed my dishwasher and ran around my house. I opened every window, closed interior doors, turned my fan on full blast, turned on my vents, and turned the AC to fan only. I locked all my pets into rooms and turned my bird's air purifier on full blast and closed the AC vent to their room. Once I ensured proper ventilation and pet safety, I went back to the dishwasher. I grabbed my 8-quart soup pot and filled it with water. I dumped that into the dishwasher, making sure to pour it on the door. And then I had to put it back together before I could start a rinse cycle to drain it. I got all that done in 10 minutes and then sat outside to calm down and breathe in some fresh air. Once I calmed down, I called poison control to tell on myself. I felt like such an idiot explaining everything to the lady. Luckily, she was very nice and let me know that I did everything I was supposed to. Then she of course told me not to do that again and to monitor myself for any symptoms. Since then, I have showered and put my clothes into the washing machine. I am now beating myself up over this. I don't know why I did such a dumb thing. I could have really hurt myself or my pets, especially my birds. Luckily, everyone is acting normal and I'm doing just fine. Now all that's left to do is just to tell my fiance what I did once he gets home. So I googled it, and mixing bleach and vinegar creates potentially lethal chlorine gas. I had no idea this was actually a thing. Apparently it's super unsafe. This is actually really good to know. I did not know this was something that could happen. I occasionally use bleach and vinegar to clean objects or surfaces. I didn't know it could create a poisonous substance. That's actually really good that the original poster didn't get hurt or somebody didn't, I don't know, unalive themselves, because I would have had no idea. But I probably would have figured it out once the gas started to smell absolutely obnoxious. So yeah, just a little life lesson. Don't mix vinegar and bleach, otherwise you're just gonna poison yourself. My boyfriend is obsessed with Elden Ring. Much like every other girl out there, I have lost my 23-year-old boyfriend to Elden Ring. It wasn't a big deal at first because I see how the first week of the game is exciting and fun. Elden Ring is fun and I occasionally play it, but my boyfriend takes it to a new level. He logged close to 200 hours since its release. He's finished the game already and is almost done with his second playthrough. On Saturday, he started playing at 1:30 in the afternoon and it is now 8:00 p.m. Sunday evening. He hasn't stopped outside of grabbing a drink or going to the toilet. That's pretty much it. I asked him to pay attention to me today. He says, I just have to beat this boss. I just have to find this treasure. I just have to do this or that. Finally, I got him off of the game and thought we could talk for an hour before I had to go to sleep at 9. And his stupid friends ended up messaging him about playing on the game. He just kept saying, I just have to help them beat this one boss. Yeah, okay buddy. I'll see you when I wake up in the morning, like I have since the game came out. He wants to know why I'm upset, but honestly, I can't even process the words for it. He's really good about talking our frustrations out, but part of me feels guilty because I want to be the cool girlfriend, and the other part wants to go into a rage and just absolutely start breaking things. Does anyone have advice on how I can talk to him? I totally understand where this guy is coming
from because Elden Ring is addicting. That game is so much fun. I myself found my Saturday completely sucked away from me when I looked up and it was 4 o'clock in the afternoon and I hadn't done anything besides get out of bed and play Elden Ring. So I see where she's coming from of not seeing her boyfriend ever again. I don't think I've taken it to the extreme of not moving for literally a day, but I think I'm coming close. She just needs to talk to him and be honest and maybe rip the game away from him for maybe just 30 minutes so they can at least try and begin to discuss this issue. It sounds like this is just a fun new toy for this guy and he really enjoys the game, which is understandable because it's a fantastic game, but a little communication will go a long way. All of my friends and family think my boyfriend is ugly. So it's important to start by saying that I had not lived at home since I was 18 until the pandemic. So my whole dating life has been entirely separate to my family life up to this point. I've been in one serious but unhappy relationship that lasted a year, but the rest of my relationships have never made it past 3 months, and I've never mentioned anyone I've seen to my family. I began dating this guy 3 months ago and very quickly realized that we had a lot in common and that I wanted to see where this would go. I began chatting to my friends about him and showing pictures, as you do, and every single one of my friends has said something like, "He has a weird face. Shame about his face. That's unfortunate." And just always commenting that he's less attractive and that it won't last because of that. But I kept telling myself that he has so many other qualities that I really like and that the way he looks didn't bother me. It never stopped me wanting to be physical with him, so I didn't see why it mattered. So we continued dating and I eventually mentioned him to my mom. I told her a bit about him, and then a couple weeks later I showed her a picture and she instantly took a disliking to him and started asking me what I was doing, trying to figure out what I saw in him. She literally said, "He must think himself really lucky to have someone that looks like you." And up until this point, she had liked the idea of him. Now I don't really know what to do. I like this guy a lot, and I think I might be falling for him. But to know that all of my friends and family think he is ugly and keep commenting on how he is less attractive is really upsetting. Should I just try and ignore them? Is it really a bad idea to date someone that's supposedly less attractive than you, even if they make you really happy? First off, I want to say that the friends and family in this situation are terrible people. The original poster here does not need to listen to anybody else. She already knows that she loves this man. Who cares what anyone else thinks? There is so much more to a relationship than just physical looks. She's found somebody who's compatible, who she loves, someone she wants to be close with, and someone that she genuinely feels loved with. Why on earth would she care what other people think? I would personally tell all those people who are saying that my significant other is unattractive to get lost. This has nothing to do with them. Overall, she owes nobody an explanation as to why she loves him and should continue to be with him regardless of what anyone thinks of how he looks. My female best friend is acting jealous of me dating, even though she rejected me romantically herself. Me and my friend have always been close, but after she broke up with her boyfriend a few months ago, we got even closer since I was getting out of a difficult relationship around that time too. We talk every day, often for hours at a time, hang out one-on-one, and basically share everything. We're always there for each other in times of crisis. A few weeks ago, I realized I wanted to be more than friends, so I asked her out, and she rejected me very firmly. She said she only saw me as a friend, a close friend, in fact, basically family, her words, not mine, but a friend nonetheless. Since then, she started dating again and has constantly asked me for advice on how to act around these guys she's seeing. At first, it was difficult since I liked her, but I powered through it to be there for her. She said she knew it was painful for me, but she needed my advice and support, and a good friend should always be there. The thing is, I know she's not testing me and challenging me to make a move again. She's getting quite serious with one of those guys, and it's looking like they'll be official very soon, and she's quite smitten with him. She has also reiterated her stance on numerous occasions that I am not on the table as a romantic partner. I haven't even brought it up again since I accepted her decision to say no, but she always finds a way to bring it up just to remind me that it's never going to happen. However, last week I met a lovely girl and we exchanged numbers. We had a coffee date last Saturday and my friend got really weird around me. She kept asking me about it, and not in a happy way. These were instead really personal, probing questions. Even when it became clear that I was uncomfortable, she kept trying to ask more questions. And last night, myself and this new lady had dinner together, and we ended up going back to her place. My friend was texting me all night, and when I told her I was on a date, she got really weird, and then kept texting me more and asking why I was being slow with my response. I stopped responding after a while, and this morning I had a barrage of upset texts. She called me as soon as I was home and wanted to know all about the date. How do we do? Am I seeing her again? Did we sleep together? It was really intrusive and I felt very uncomfortable. I think she's jealous of the fact that I'm dating, but I don't understand why since she rejected me. Does she want me to be single forever? Why? She's very open about the fact that she's dating all these wonderful men, and I'm glad to see her happy. So why isn't she happy for me? Surely she would be delighted I'm going on dates with new women because it means I'm not going to try and make a move on her again, especially now that she's getting serious with a potential new boyfriend. It seems like she wants me to be supportive and happy for her going out with guys, but is jealous and unsupportive when I go out with other girls. I'm at a loss at how to handle this. I don't want to lose her as a friend, but the sheer hypocrisy is doing my head in. Yeah, the lady here is very jealous for some weird reason, and it sounds like she just wants him around without him actually having any kind of happiness. Like it feels like a power play, like she's happy she has someone around her that she has some semblance of control over because she rejected him. She's being very selfish. It sounds like she likes having him as a satellite, someone who just kind of hangs around and is always around her, more like an object than an actual friend. This is very toxic, and this guy does not need this. At the end of the day, honestly, she is not his friend. She's manipulating him and she's being very toxic. This seems like an ego boost for her, and he can do a lot better with finding better friends. My Karen mother blames my husband for getting her sick. Let me start this by saying that my mother has never liked my husband since we started dating almost 5 years ago. My mother has always had issues with the fact that my husband has always advocated for my mental health, even if she didn't like the outcome, and was the one to help move me out of her house after 18 years of psychological torment. I have always loved him, and always will, even if she does not approve of our relationship. On to what sparked this post. My husband was exposed to COVID almost 3 weeks ago at his job and ended up testing positive. Both of us got tested and I came up negative. I was lucky enough that I never caught it while caring for him for the last couple of weeks and nursing him back to health. I, however, caught a nasty strain of bronchitis and a stomach bug at the same time that left me incapacitated alongside him. From the moment I informed my mother that he tested positive, she claimed,
"Well, it couldn't really be that bad."
Also saying,
"Those tests don't come up negative all the time."
To err on the side of caution, I did my errands we needed to be done and was the only one bringing in packages that our family dropped off for us. Thankfully, after almost 2 weeks, he now has tested negative and is feeling back to his old self. His 30th birthday happened to fall 3 days after he tested negative. I insisted he stay home for that day, as we didn't want to celebrate anyway, but we had made plans a few months earlier with my mother to go over to her place for dinner the day after his birthday. I informed her that he was no longer testing positive, and she replied,
"Well, now you don't have any excuse not to come over and see me."
I received a phone call this morning from my extremely ill mother asking me how to read her COVID test, and I walked her through it over the phone, to which she hung up directly after confirming it was positive. I texted her directly after asking where she thought she had picked it up, since it had been 4 days since we last saw her, and I needed to know if we needed to get retested. Her response was,
"I obviously caught it from that no-good, stupid son-in-law who just had to have his birthday party and couldn't bother thinking of other people's safety."
I was dumbfounded at the text and decided not to respond so that I wouldn't say something I regretted. She quickly followed it up with a text saying that I should just ignore it because she has been up throwing up all night, and because of her diabetes and her sugars being all over the place since she is sick, that I should just ignore the message and get over it. Then she promptly unsent all the messages so that there was no proof that she could possibly be the bad guy. I have had issues with my mother before because she doesn't approve of the man I have chosen to be with, but in my mind, this is the last straw. I don't know if I ever want to be or ever can be in contact with her again, even if she does apologize to my husband. The mom in this story really is a Karen. I mean, how selfish can you be? Treating their daughter's husband like garbage for some unknown reason, blaming them for something that they didn't do. He tested negative, like come on. How on earth could you blame them for something that clearly is a medical issue that you're dealing with? If I was the woman in this situation, I 100% would have called out my mom on this and made my feelings known. You do not have to take that kind of abuse, and I don't blame her for wanting to cut off contact. Am I the jerk for not letting my friend bring their dog to our cabin for vacation? My friend group consists of about 6 people, and one of them is Ashley. I have a beach house and I usually host some small vacations for our group over there. Ashley recently got a dog, and the dog has separation anxiety, so she can't just leave it alone. She asked if she could bring the dog over. I'm not a fan of dogs unless I know they are service dogs and are properly trained. She often complains how her dog is struggling, and I frankly don't want her dog in my house. I apologized and told her I don't want the dog to come over because I don't want one in the house. She got really upset because she can't leave the dog at a doggy daycare because of separation anxiety. I said I understand, but I guess that meant she wouldn't be able to come. It's also good to know most of my friends love the cabin. It's large and right on the beach, so we've made good memories here, and due to COVID, haven't really been there in a while. Ashley is really upset she's missing out on this, and some of my friends think I'm being mean to her and that the dog wouldn't cause much problems while some are defending me. It's getting a little heated, and I don't know what I should do. In all honesty, I can see this both ways. Like, first and foremost, it is your house, and it's your responsibility to make sure that it's in good condition. But at the same time, I can kind of see where Ashley's coming from. Maybe the dog has separation anxiety, but it doesn't sound like there's any violent tendencies associated with it. Like, I'm sure if you put the dog in a crate and then just put the crate over by like the front door, it would probably be okay. And I know it's a dog and you want it to be out and playing with it, but if you're really worried it's gonna like destroy things, you can take proper precautions. In my opinion, I think the original poster is maybe stretching this a little bit farther than it needs to be, but also it's their property. So, I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do. I accidentally destroyed my son's Minecraft world. My son is 7 years old and loves playing Minecraft. Lately, he's been asking me to join him. I've never played it before, but what beats gaming with your kid, right? So he has this world where he just roams and builds things. He has built an amazing house. Honestly, I know he's my son and I am probably biased, but the things he builds are amazing. He asked me to build a house next to his, so I did. Then one evening, I think, I'm going to build him a surprise. He's really into robots, so I thought, I'm going to build him a massive robot. And I'm talking Statue of Liberty or Eiffel Tower massive. It's 8 in the evening, we had just brought the kids to bed, and I start building and building and building. Around 10, I look at it and I think, this robot is sick. But wouldn't it be cool if it had an Iron Man-like energy source? So I start digging a hole in the robot's chest. Inside, I'm starting to build this energy source type of thing. I figure it has to be shiny and flashy, so I start stacking gold blocks. To make it look extra cool, I capture the gold blocks in transparent ice blocks. I fly away, look at it from a distance and think, it's not glowing yet. Let me lighten this up with some torches around it. So I do, and it looks amazing. A job well done, so I walk to the fridge and grab myself a well-earned drink. I get back to the TV and there is water running. There is a legit waterfall pouring down my massive robot's chest. How on earth could this happen? How was I supposed to know? The physics make no sense, but all of a sudden, these ice blocks do melt near fire. I quickly shut the hole in the robot's chest, but it's too late. My son's entire house and garden are flooded. There are all kinds of puddles and little lakes where there used to be fields of sheep. He built a convertible car, which now sits on an island. The whole place looks like a mess. So this happened yesterday night. It's now 9 a.m. and my kids are helping my girlfriend bake waffles. At some point, my child will want to play with me. I only hope we can restore the game to a previous point to avoid some kind of meltdown. There might be a silver lining to this because from the sounds of it, the kid seems like a good kid. Maybe he'll be cool with rebuilding the town and kind of making it better. Or the original poster is going to be doomed to a life of indentured servitude to his kid to try and rebuild this town. I scared the life out of my girlfriend by crawling up the stairs like a demon. So we're borrowing my girlfriend's father's house for the weekend while he and his partner are away. It's me, my girl, and our 1-year-old son. The kid was put down, to sleep that is, around 8 o'clock p.m. and my girlfriend went to bed at around 11. About 2 hours ago, around 1 in the morning, I went to draw a bath in the tub. I love taking baths at night, and we don't have a tub at our home now, so when I get the chance, I go for it. The bathroom is on the second floor of the house, alongside 3 other bedrooms. One of them occupied by the kid, and the other one by her and me. Once I've tidied up my stuff and find all the light switches, all that remains is to ascend the staircase and lower my pale carcass into the perfectly tempered water that calms my nerves and soothes my body. The thing is, it's a really creaky staircase, like comically so. It sounds like you're violently disintegrating it beneath your feet as you climb it. The noise is insane. Those noises will wake everybody up in the house if you don't do it perfectly. And even though you're still making enough noise to garner a contract on your head from your neighbors, if you know what I mean. My girl is a light sleeper, has trouble sleeping, and really values the sleep she does get. My son is a slightly heavier sleeper, but he's nowhere near my own loudly comatose sleep, and this creaking would shatter any hope of me entering the bath this side of an hour. And did I mention how steep these stairs are? It's more akin to climbing a wall. How 3 kids grew up in this house without casualties amazes me, because this thing is deadly if you don't watch your step. Add to that the challenge of avoiding creaking and cracking the steps, and you got a proper quest on your hands. So what do? Naturally, I'd get together an appropriate solution suitable for my ambitions. I figured I'd walk up the stairs on all 4s, you know, to distribute
my weight as I went up the stairs to creak less. The idea made sense at the time, and to be honest, it worked, future consequences notwithstanding. The creaking was much, much lower, but not low enough to wake up my girlfriend. As I turned off the last light downstairs and made my ascent, she came out into the hallway. She wasn't wearing her glasses, so it took a moment for her to notice me, since I also instinctively froze for that same amount of time when she opened the bedroom door. So at that very moment, I freeze. As I freeze, she looks at me, and all she could see was my pale, tired, nighttime face frozen in an undoubtedly unfortunate grimace, with a bigger, even paler body climbing up at her like an albino spider from the pitch black darkness of downstairs on all fours at 1 a.m. She screamed so loud it shook my eyeballs and howled as she fell to the floor and shrieked in very real, horrifying fear. Our son woke up, joining his mother in the absolute mayhem that was my relaxing bath time. I nearly fell down the stairs, but managed to rush up and calm my girlfriend down, but she was too terrified and furious to listen to me. Thankfully, she was able to laugh at it once we calmed down our son and her heart rate slowed down to triple digits. My girlfriend, the ever drama queen, feels this was not appropriate behavior at 1 a.m. She also thought I looked like an American version of the Grudge Girl, but creepier. Threats were leveled against me and my dearest private parts if I ever did that again. This is hilarious to me because I can see this happening. I think anybody's crawled up the steps on all fours like a goblin at some point in their life, but to do it in the dark at 1 a.m. is absolutely hilarious to me. But at the end of the day, sometimes you just gotta sneak around your house to get things done. And unfortunately, you just might scare someone right out of their skin. I think my boyfriend has a crush on my sister. I'll start off by saying my sister has always been the star of our family. She's the typical gorgeous girl. She was prom queen, a cheerleader, and always gets hit on everywhere she goes. By no means am I super insecure. We are related after all, but I'm painfully aware I'm closer to average. I've had other boyfriends in the past, and honestly, them meeting her and hanging out with all three of us has never been an issue. My current boyfriend, on the other hand, is starting to bring up insecurities in me that I never knew I had. It all started when I met some of his friends a couple of months ago. One of them recognized my full name and realized who my sister was from being in the same grade in high school, and went on and on about how hot she was and that my boyfriend is probably kicking himself after realizing which sister he picked. Now, I'm used to this sort of banter, but what really hurt is my boyfriend just laughed. At the time, I wasn't mad at my boyfriend, but other situations have made me start to feel extremely insecure. When my friends greet me whenever we hang out, I know they're just being playful when they ask, "Hey, how's your sister doing?" Or "Is your sister single yet?" It's stuff like this that really rubs me the wrong way, and my boyfriend isn't helping. When I met his coworkers, they have talked about her and how attractive she is, but the only tie they would have to her is my boyfriend, which leads me to believe my boyfriend is actively showing her off. I was trying to show him something on Instagram, and I noticed he had searched for her profile, and lately he always asks about her, or even goes as far as to ask to hang out as three of us. I'm close to my sister, but the fact that he invites her to come with us to restaurants or places where I think we're going has gotten me frustrated and is making me feel like he has a crush on her. Anyone with an obviously more attractive sibling have any advice? He's a wonderful guy otherwise, but as I mentioned before, my other exes have acknowledged she's attractive, but have never had any sort of obsession over her. Yeah, this is pretty bad. It definitely seems like this guy has a crush on his girlfriend's sister. The original poster goes on to say that they went and they confronted their boyfriend about this, and the boyfriend said that he was just trying to show off how attractive the entire family is, and he only invites her to things to be nice, and stuff like, since we go out and eat a lot, he didn't realize he was basically asking her to tag along on dates, which is honestly exactly what he was doing. But the best silver lining about it is that he totally understands why she's upset over this. So you just gotta be careful. And also, what terrible friends does this person have? Like, why would you compare this woman to her sister with the implication that she is not as good looking as her sister? Like, that's really rude and disrespectful. I think she needs to find better friends, but it's really good to hear that she has a good boyfriend who understands where she's coming from. My crazy parents stole my Nintendo Switch and held it hostage against me. I'm 20 years old and moved out of my parents' house at 18 because I really couldn't stand it. And it's for all of the kinds of reasons you can guess. They were jerks, favored my younger siblings, used me for free childcare. They even told me, "What's mine is mine and what's yours is mine." All that garbage. When I left, my dad told me not to let the door hit me on the way out and to never come back. I got the smallest and cheapest apartment I could find and have worked the same full-time job for 2 years. My parents didn't even hold out a month before calling me and begging me to come back home, because without me, someone else had to watch my siblings. I refused because now I finally had time for myself. My dad eventually called me and actually
actually demanded I move back home and pay them rent because family is more important than my personal independence. I said back to him that my life is too important, and for once I'm getting to live for myself. So he basically said, well then see how long you can last without us. And we didn't talk for months. I don't know what he was hoping for. I managed well enough myself for 2 years. My family seemed to slowly accept that I wasn't going to come crawling back, and over time we seemed to mend things for the most part. I could tell they were having a hard time dealing with the fact that things were on my terms and not theirs. They begged me to watch my youngest siblings from time to time, even though the two that are closest to me in age are in their mid-teens now. But my parents don't want to put babysitting on them any more than they have to, which is hypocritical since they tried to put it on me as much as possible. And yes, I have called them out on that. They responded with gaslighting and more months of silence yet again. And yet, like clockwork, they were the ones to come crawling back asking me for help. Not long ago, I bought myself a Nintendo Switch, even though I could only afford one game for it at the moment. My mom came by on a Saturday and asked me to watch my two youngest siblings for a while. She basically pushed them in the door at me and ran away. I was stuck with these two rowdy kids all day in my tiny apartment. My mom didn't come back until 9 o'clock in the evening, and that is because I called her and made her come get her kids. And she really didn't like that I cut her fun time short. I said that unless she wanted to pay me, I wasn't going to watch my siblings all day anymore, ever again. And next time, I won't even open the door, and I'll call the police if she leaves them outside my doorstep. The next morning, I realized I couldn't find my Nintendo Switch anywhere, so I called my parents. And like I thought, one of my siblings took it. I said I was coming over to get it right away, but my mom said it could wait because my youngest sibling was gaming on it, and she didn't have the heart to take it away. I said it was taken without my permission, and I will be taking it back. I got on my bike and rode there as soon as possible, and when I arrived, my sibling was crying because the Switch's battery had gone dead, and they didn't have the charger. I told them to give it back, but my dad took it and said I can have it back when I agree to start helping out with my siblings more. I told him if that's how he wanted to play this, I'd get the police involved. And no, I was not bluffing. He dug his heels in and insisted I wouldn't do it until I pulled my phone out and started dialing. My mom yelled, "Wait!" and quickly took my Switch back from my dad. He called her a traitor and demanded she return it to him instead of me, but she said it wasn't worth having police called on them. Before leaving, I told them if this ever happens again, I'd be calling the police first. And if they want to switch for my siblings so bad, they can get their own. My dad yelled that I can't disrespect him like that, and I countered that even though I'm an adult, he's not bothered to show even an ounce of respect for me, and that I had had enough. Then I walked out with him yelling at me to come back and face him. Right now it's back to silence from them. My mom texted me once again, begging me to still watch my siblings. I said that if she wanted me to babysit so bad, she could pay me, and I'd only take the money in advance, because I'm not doing it for free anymore. I simply can't, especially after they stole from me and tried to keep from returning my property. They don't own me. I'm an adult with my own place and my own life, and they can either get used to it or get lost. This is a crazy story because the parents in here are absolutely crossing the line left and right. I mean, this person has their own life. They're 20 years old, living on their own. They have a full-time job, and they spend their hard-earned money on their Nintendo Switch. And these crazy parents try to hold it hostage just so this person can try and babysit their siblings some more. They do not owe their parents anything, especially if they're going to be this abusive. And this person is way more patient than I would have been. If my hypothetical crazy parents left my younger siblings on my doorstep and then ran off, I would have called Child Protective Services. There is no way I would let that slide. This person is a hero in my eyes because they're standing up for themselves and they're setting clear boundaries. And at the end of the day, if someone can't respect those boundaries, then they shouldn't be in your life anyways, family member or not. Today, I messed up by assuming me and my friend were dating. Back in January, I met a guy at my campus who I really hit it off with. The chemistry was undeniable. A couple days later, he asked me if I wanted to go get lunch together with him. Just by the straightforwardness of how he asked, I figured he was asking me out. I was probably blinded by how much I liked him as well. The next several weeks, we spent a lot of time together, where he would be the one initiating things and taking me around. At this point, I assumed we were a couple. Fast forward to last Sunday, when we ran into some of my old friends, and when I introduced him, I called him my boyfriend. Immediately after that conversation ended, and we went our separate ways, he looked at me puzzlingly and asked why I said that. He explained he doesn't date at all, and just considered us very good friends, and that I'm the closest friend he's had in years. I've never been more embarrassed, and it's completely my fault for jumping to conclusions. Oh man, this one's sad. I think this is just obvious evidence that you don't want to jump to conclusions, especially in a relationship, man. You got to make sure you have clear defined expectations because one person thought they were in a relationship and the other one thought they were just really good friends. I can't help but cringe at this story, but I also feel really bad for the original poster. They obviously thought they had something perfect, and from the sounds of it, this seemed like a really good relationship. But boy howdy, does it need to be clearly more defined. Otherwise, you're just gonna get friend-zoned. An angry Karen tries to steal my waffles. This happened a few years ago. There was this one sunny Sunday, and I was in a particularly good mood. I was walking around my new neighborhood. All of the houses were built at the same time, and about 50 families moved in and got settled in the last few months back then. People were still getting to know each other. I noticed a bunch of Girl Scouts going door to door with homemade waffles. As I walked past them, they approached me and tried to get me to buy some waffles. I told them to follow me back to my house, as I didn't bring money on my walk. While walking, we spoke a little, and it turned out that their sale had been underwhelming. I decided to buy all of their waffles. I was handed out easily over 100 waffles. If I remember correctly, I spent about 60 to 70 euros. They ran off extremely happy. I figured I'd open up my garage, pop up a small plastic table I keep in my garden shed, and plug in my waffle iron to heat up the waffles. I filled bowls with all kinds of sugar and placed a few syrups next to it. Next, I invited all the new neighbors over to my driveway for a free waffle by texting our Facebook group. Sure enough, a couple of families were keen and a small crowd gathered. It was all fun and games. People got to know each other, we had some wonderful warm waffles, and we even got to make some fun waffles with some killer toppings on them. After some time, a frowning lady, who for some reason appeared to be in quite a hurry, made her way through my neighbors and approached me. I hadn't seen her before. She asked what all this was and why it was happening. I told her the entire story and that it was based on a whim. I don't know how to describe her that would do her character justice, but she was very in your face, way too intense.
So they're free?
She asked. Well, yeah, I told her. I told her again I meant to bring the neighbors together, but that I'd happily provide her with a gloriously topped waffle too.
She said no, none of that,
and said she'd have a bag. She wanted no less than 20 waffles. Now, I'm usually not one for confrontation, and I was already deciding to comply, but then I realized I don't owe her anything, and backed up by the frowns of my neighbors, I told the lady that definitely was not what I had in mind when I bought the waffles. I told her I was happy to prepare her one or two, but I wasn't going to hand them out in large numbers to a complete stranger. She then raised her volume and got offended. She yelled at me what my deal was and why she was the only one denied waffles. Thankfully, the neighbor stepped in. I said that everything here had good intentions and even apologized for taking her chance to buy waffles from the Girl Scouts. I offered her to buy some off me if she wanted them that bad, as I still had plenty, but she was adamant on getting them for free.
No way. Everyone got theirs for free. I won't be the only one paying.
Something like that. Multiple attempts were made to reason with her and to make her see the intention of our events. All of this was to no avail. My neighbors eventually isolated her from the group, and after some continuous blabbering from her to a poor guy who hadn't even said a word, she stormed off. It kind of ruined the mood, but I decided to let it pass. Other families were still coming in, and the situation quickly became a bonding moment. Most were surprised hearing about it. Some already knew her and were less surprised. About 45 minutes to an hour later, two unknown, very friendly kids showed up and ate some waffles. Most people had left by then, and I was just having drinks with some of the guys who stuck around. I had a few waffles left, and the kids asked if they could bring some home. So I said, well, yeah, why not? Happy faces ran off with a few waffles towards a lady in the distance. Yep, it was the angry Karen. And yeah, those were her kids. She flipped me off in front of her kids, yelled something which I didn't understand, and they walked off in the distance. We had to process that for a while. Meanwhile, the angry Karen is quite infamous around our neighborhood. She lives a few streets further. She's employed as a caregiver in a retirement home, and she's an absolute terror. She dumps her trash in other people's bins so she doesn't have to pay as much for her garbage. She blocks driveways. On several cases, she's been reported as a package thief. She calls the cops on anything, has been seen to abuse neighborhood cats. The list goes on. Her kids are super sweet though, which was remarkable. I luckily haven't seen her much ever since the waffle incident. This Karen is absolutely insane. She rolls up in there in an impromptu event and tries to steal all of the waffles. This is like a really bad Batman villain. I mean, who walks up there and says, I want 20 waffles? Like, can she not read the room? I'm very happy that the original poster did not cave to this crazy Karen's demands, but it's especially disgusting that she got her kids to do her dirty work for her. Overall, it sounds like this guy has a weird, crazy Karen neighbor, and hopefully she never shows shows her ugly face around his parts ever again. Is it weird for my parents to have security cameras all around my house? Now, I don't think any cameras are in my room, but they do threaten to hide more cameras if I misbehave, though I know they aren't being serious. There are cameras in the living room, the yard, hallway, around the stairs, and in some corners of the upstairs area directly outside my room. The main reason my parents give for having cameras is due to security, since they are both very paranoid of potential robbers. They insist that they don't have the time or effort to check what I'm up to through the cameras, but that does not make me feel assured enough. I am a person who is already annoyed by the countless strict rules they impose on me, even though I'm 18. I value my privacy, and having cameras around the house makes me super uncomfortable. My parents get mad at me when I bring it up because they don't understand my concerns. My mom keeps saying that if there are cameras in school and shopping centers, I shouldn't be worried that there are cameras in the house too. Neither of my parents have the common decency to understand me. And also, my dad gets super mad when I express how uncomfortable I am because he says it seems like I'm suspecting him to be a bad person or something. Does anyone have cameras around the house, or is this super creepy? This is a tricky one because I do know of people who have cameras outside their house to monitor who comes in and out. I also know a few people who have cameras inside their house for like watching their pets, or even just keeping an eye on things if you live in a neighborhood that might be a little sketchy. But I don't know too many people who have that many cameras, and from the sounds of it, it looks like all the cameras are pointed at this kid's room. I mean, it seems like the parents are kind of saying without saying it that they don't really trust their daughter. I think if she wants to find a way around it or to find some kind of common ground, she can see if she can have access to the cameras. For security purposes, you would think that she would want access. Like, what if she's home alone and she hears something at night? Wouldn't you want to have access so you can kind of check out the house and see what's going on? Or is this only for their parents to have? It might be a good way for her to have a conversation with them without them getting upset. Usually these camera systems have some kind of phone app or something where you can watch the cameras. Overall, I can totally understand where this girl is coming from of feeling uncomfortable by it, and it's really unfortunate that her parents are not more understanding. A crazy Karen tried to steal my daughter's Nintendo Switch. For a bit of background, this story happened in September 2021. My family and I were planning this trip to Mexico for 6 months, where we would spend time with our family. The day to travel came, and I was with my daughter at the boarding gate minding my own business, as everyone should do. My daughter was next to me playing on her Nintendo Switch. Then all of a sudden, a kid showed up next to us and just watched my daughter play her games. This was fine. Kids are just being kids sitting together. Everything started when this kid wanted to take the console from my daughter's hands, saying,
"You don't know how to play, give it to me."
My daughter is around 4 years old, and she's learning the controls, and this kid was 8 or 9 years old. I quickly react and grab the Nintendo Switch and told this random kid that it's not his and he should go with his family. I thought everything was fine. Then 10 minutes later, this kid's parents roll up, and this wild Karen rushes me and starts screaming,
"You assaulted my son. Give back what you have stolen."
I just put on a face saying, "What are you talking about?" and stand up covering my daughter. And of course, everyone was looking at us at this point as this lady continues to scream,
"Security, please help, we are in danger."
I continued in a calm and collected manner and just watched her until the police came. And that's when she starts to tell her version of the story. Then the cops turned to me and I told them that she was lying. The Karen was not having it. She was mad at my version, and I don't know what she told her son, but suddenly her son starts crying, saying he's really scared of me. Long story short, she continues to yell, argue, and demand to give my daughter's console to her son that apparently I stole. They took me in a small room until they could verify through the surveillance cameras exactly which story was the truth, mine or hers. Spoiler alert, I was correct. Once they told me I was correct and good to go, I decided to press charges on this lady for harassing me and my daughter and threatening us. After the dust settled, she was kicked out of the airport, and boy oh boy was she not happy. She went full Karen rage mode when they were taking her out. All the while, I'm on the plane sitting pretty, ready to travel to Mexico. It's crazy to me that this lady literally tried to steal from this kid's daughter. I mean, this bratty 8-year-old comes up and tries to steal a Nintendo Switch from a 4-year-old, and the mother tries to pull it off as if it's theirs. From what I saw, this seems super coordinated, so I wouldn't be surprised if this lady was somehow coercing her son into stealing Nintendo Switches. But at the end of the day, justice prevailed, and this Karen got exactly what she deserved. My boyfriend broke up with me for having male friends. My boyfriend and I have been together for 8 months. Things have been great, and I thought we had a solid, trusting relationship up until now. This all started this month when, after me saying I wanted to break things off after a huge argument
argument and us starting to talk again, my boyfriend requested to check my phone for reassurance that I wasn't talking to anyone else. Now this break had only lasted for a few days, so I hadn't begun to seek anyone else out, as I still loved him deeply, and I'm just not the type of person to move on quickly. I told him that I really did not want him to do that, as having someone look through my phone to check my loyalty is something I communicated that I'm extremely uncomfortable with. I told him this, and I got upset, saying that it shouldn't be an issue if I had nothing to hide, and that he just wanted to see to reassure him that I was loyal. I eventually gave in and showed him my social media to prove I wasn't talking to anyone new, but he took my phone out of my hands and wouldn't let me have it back, which started a huge argument. He said that the look on my face when he wanted to check my DMs told me everything he needed to know, when in reality, I was simply upset that he took my phone, pushed me off him when I tried to take it back, and simply didn't trust me after having been together for 8 months. I truly had nothing to hide. It was the way that he was acting that caused me to have such a negative reaction. Fast forward a couple weeks later, and he's still upset about the incident. He's had my phone and all my social media accounts blocked for at least a week, and said that he'll unlock them when he sees the change. This change he was referring to involved me deleting every male off my social media because he wanted to be the only man in my life and didn't trust me to have any male friends. This included one of my closest friends who is a guy. We have been friends for several years and chat and see each other in college all the time. I never thought that our friendship would be an issue, and he is not a straight man and has never expressed the slightest amount of interest in me, and vice versa. I told my boyfriend that although I loved him and valued our relationship, asking me to cut off every other male in my life and isolating me from one of my best friends is something I cannot do, especially when it's okay for him to have female friends. He went on about how I'm choosing my friend over him, and he hopes all those dudes are worth it, saying how I'll never find someone that treats me better than he does, and that he can't be with someone like me. He then proceeded to break up with me, and I don't know what to do or how to feel anymore. I'll say it for all of us, this lady dodged a huge loser. The fact that this guy would try and isolate her from any other guy in her life is crazy. I mean, how self-conscious can you possibly be? What a controlling psychopath. Like, who does that? It would be different if she was actively looking and speaking with other guys that would then give him reason to think that she's not being loyal, but to just automatically assume that she's not being loyal just by being friends with guys on her social media is a new level of insecurity that I haven't seen in a very long time. The problem is honestly on the guy in this situation. The girl did not do anything wrong, and in all honesty, this is not someone that she wants in her life. His behavior is not normal, it's abusive, and it could only get worse over time. She absolutely deserves better, and she dodged a very big bullet. My boyfriend won't stop talking like an Elden Ring character, and it's driving me crazy. I've been dating my boyfriend for about 3.5 years now, and we've been living together for 2 years. Overall, I would say our relationship has always been great. I love him very much, and I wouldn't want anyone else. I'm not really into video games, but I like watching my boyfriend play when he comes home from work. Lately, all he's been playing is Elden Ring, which I'm sure some of you will know. He really enjoys it, and it makes me happy that he's having fun, but I feel like he's getting a bit too into it. For about 3 weeks now, he's been talking like the characters from the game basically non-stop, putting on a weird accent and being unnecessarily vague about everything. I've tried bringing it up to him multiple times over the past few weeks, but all he does is chuckle and then go back into whatever he's doing. I'm not sure what to think of this. I feel like at this point, he's just doing it because he knows it annoys me, and the thought of him doing something like that is very painful. I really don't want to break up with him, but I feel like I'll go insane if I have to endure this any longer. Should I just wait for him to stop? I'm sure he will eventually, but the idea that he would do something like this to me in the first place is really bothering me. First and foremost, I have to say that I understand where the addiction to Elden Ring is coming from, but I can also see where the girl is coming from, where she's getting annoyed at the way her boyfriend is acting. So I don't blame her for telling him to please stop acting like this. It's kind of weird. Now, going as far as breaking up with him because of this, I think is a little extreme, but I think having an honest conversation with him would probably go really far. My new puppy is tearing my relationship apart. After I moved in with my girlfriend mid last year, she has been wanting to get a dog. No rescue, no baggage, no mixed breed. She just wanted a puppy. Last week, she got what she wanted. A purebred 11-week-old border collie. Since then, she has regretted the decision and wanted to take her back. I think she didn't realize that puppies bark, chew, bite, and whine. They scratch and are smelly, noisy, and dependent on you. I spent the week leading up researching about puppies. She preferred to learn in the moment. I went out and bought everything we needed and took time off work to help our pup transition into our lives. My girlfriend hates that I split my time between them, and we
we have been fighting about it all week. I haven't had much time because while my girlfriend is at work, I've been socializing, training, and looking after our puppy. A couple of times, I have heard some possibly abusive things from my girlfriend. She started yelling at the dog to wake up while it was sleeping, so it would sleep during the night and not make sounds. She also threatened to leave the dog in her crate to sleep outside. Just today, I returned home after being away for 5 minutes to hear the puppy whining. At the time, we were cleaning, so we put the puppy in the crate just to sit there while we did our thing. My girlfriend said, "We're all suffering so much," and implied that we should just let the dog cry. She's not interested in training, yells at her a lot, and doesn't share the same views on socializing. I'm working as hard as I can to solve everyone's problems here, but I'm not sure when it's not worth pursuing anymore. It seems like she wants the cute, adorable dog without any of the work. That's like saying you want kids without having to change diapers, clean up vomit, or take them to school. Like, that's not how this works. Baggage does come along with puppies, even if they're new. Like, you gotta clean up after them and you have to train them correctly. Seems like the guy in this situation is the only one who realized what actually is gonna have to happen with a new dog in the house. The girlfriend here is showing some true colors and it's really alarming. So yeah, I think if this guy wants to try and salvage this relationship with this girl, then the dog is probably gonna have to go, unfortunately. My parents stole all of my money. This happened in 2015. I was 18 and about to move out on my own. Prior to this, I had a savings account my parents helped me set up, and I'd been putting money into it any way I could for almost 3 years. Birthday money, odd jobs, part-time after-school jobs, washing dishes, anything I could. And I'd managed to get a few thousand into it. I'd really been wanting to move out because I had 2 little brothers that absolutely drove me up a wall. My parents loved making me the live-in babysitter whenever I wasn't working, which is why I used the excuse to work as much as I could. When the time came, I wanted to move out. My parents said they wanted me to stay because they needed my help and were wanting me to start paying rent to help with the bills. But I held my ground that I wanted to live on my own. I'd already paid the deposit and first month's rent on an apartment without telling them, and by that point, I had a local full-time job. So I was set to move out after about another month. So when they found that out, they freaked out and told me to get out that day if I wanted to be out on my own so bad. I packed what I could and left to go to my aunt and uncle's house. It was a 4-mile ride with a bicycle that I had a small trailer hooked to. When I told my aunt and uncle what happened, they were very angry and took me in right away. A couple days later, I went to withdraw all the money from my account and I saw it was empty. My parents had come in the day before and cleaned it out. All the bank could do was give me a balance statement saying so. Because my parents were co-signers on the account, that meant they had access to the money too. I was livid and immediately told my aunt and uncle as soon as I could. They were beyond angry too. Then my aunt got an idea and started calling up other members of the family to tell them what my parents had done. It wasn't long before everybody knew. My other aunts and uncles, cousins, and grandparents were furious and let my parents have it. I don't know what kind of excuse my parents gave them, but it didn't work. The next time I saw my parents, they showed up to my aunt's and uncle's house to yell at me. When they saw me, my mother threw some money at me and called me an ungrateful brat for telling everyone. My aunt then said it was her who told everyone, not me. I looked at the money they'd thrown me, and it was just some play kids money my brothers had. I asked where the real money was, and my parents said they already used it to pay off a credit card debt. I said I wanted the money they stole from me back for real, but they refused and said it was their right to take it since they opened the account for me, and I still have a job. My expenses at the moment were fine because my next paycheck was deposited in a new account, and I was able to save until the apartment was ready, but my parents took a lot of heat from my aunt and uncle until they left. My cousin also used to babysit for my parents when I was busy, and she not only refused to do so again after what they did, but told me she put out the word to other teen babysitters on social media to avoid my parents because they were thieves. By the time I was living in my apartment, my parents finally couldn't take this social stigma anymore and met me to compromise. They said they couldn't pay me back all at once and asked for a payment plan. I had the exact number of the amount they'd stolen, and I said I wanted it all back. They actually tried to haggle me down to half the total, but I refused to take anything but the full amount. They reluctantly agreed and gave me $200 a month in cash for 2 years before it was all paid back. Now I barely see my parents, let alone speak to them, and they clearly still blame me for what happened too, because their reputation in the family never recovered. But I don't care. They were thieves that paid the piper. So I did the math, and it looks like these parents stole $4,800 from their kid. I mean, how gross and disgusting is that? I cannot fathom trying to work so hard to get your own apartment, only to then find out that your savings things that you've worked so hard for is completely cleaned out. You would hope that you would be able to trust your parents with something as precious as money in a situation like this. But it sounds like this person has terrible parents who are just absolute garbage human beings. It's also really cool that their extended family came to their defense and shunned these parents for the thieves that they are. At the end of the day, you got to be careful and look out for yourself, because you never know when something like this could happen to you, even with people you would think would love and care for you the most.